Conversation.
Put the pedal on the metal, Tom Holland. We need to get to the airport so we can begin our globe-trotting adventure to find Aponimus. Also, we've been idling in this driveway for weeks, and I think the owners are starting to suspect their car is being stolen.
Hello. I'm Hyle. Russell. Welcome to the Kongversation.
And I'm Cameron Reigle.
Sorry.
Like, I didn't know how to yes and you there.
Yeah. I've been wanting to do that for 10 years now. Finally got my chance. Was it worth it? No. Welcome to part 2 of our Star Fox Adventures Spotlight. And Star Fox Adventures is a very hard game to break down into the traditional Kongversation multi-episode spotlight structure. And it's partially why I've been dreading doing Star Fox Adventures as a spotlight, because so many of the rare games of this classic era can easily be discussed by first, as we like to do, discussing the pre-release hype and the build to the release of a game, and then just talking about the game in a very linear fashion. Here's the basic story, and then we got World 1, World 2, World 3, and so on. You can't really do that with Star Fox Adventures so much, and I think it's twofold. One, it's because there's so much backtracking and revisiting areas that you can't really just say, as you said last episode of the Spotlight series, Thorntail Hollow. You can't do that with Star Fox Adventures. It doesn't work. But also, Star Fox Adventures has one of the most convoluted stories of any rare game. I think it is one of the most obtuse, just complicated and not very concise mythologies built up around it. And don't get me wrong, Cameron, I absolutely adore it for that reason. I think the plot to this game is brilliant on so many levels, but it's not really one you can just say, and here's the story to Star Fox Adventures, because there's so many elements, both clear to the player at the beginning and not revealed until the absolute final boss battle, that it's confusing. It is a confusing game to try to do the Star Fox Adventures 101 route.
Yeah, at the very least, it's also like, it's not, it's a game where story is like constantly happening, as opposed to like, say, Banjo-Kazooie or like Donkey Kong Country 2, you have an important event at the beginning and an important event at the end, really.
Yeah.
This is running all the way through, and also it's not necessarily all like evenly partitioned. The most that you really get with that sort of thing is the chunks of the planet you have to fly to, and that's about
right.
as like episodic as Star Fox Adventures get. Like, it's not even as clearly divided as Conquer is.
Yeah. By the way, I just love anytime you can say the word chunks in relation to a game. And, Star Fox Adventures has chunks in it. You can visit those chunks. It's great. I really, really adore Star Fox Adventures, and that includes the story. I know a lot of people probably don't understand the story, or they played it once and they're like, that was stupid. Like, okay, there's going to be 20-year-old spoilers, and we're going to be talking pretty freely about them from right now on. So if you've not played Star Fox Adventures and you don't want to be spoiled, because there are some like bombshells dropped towards the end. So, you know, if you care about preserving that impact that we had 20 years ago, then maybe play the game first, however you can obtain it. But from this point on, spoilers aplenty. So Andross, right? But I think that I think it's a brilliant storyline, but I know a lot of people who play it, they walk away from it and they're like, well, that was stupid. The Andross reveal just felt tacked on. And I'm like, no, it was kind of layered in from the prologue on. We knew like something was being built to, and that something was Andross. It makes complete sense. They did a wonderful job of it. But it's something like the show Lost. I likened it to it when we were discussing this before we went live. This does remind me a little bit of the TV show Lost. I think Lost is actually brilliant long-form storytelling, and I think the finale is immensely satisfying. I realize I am in the vast minority right there, or the very small minority. The vast majority of people think Lost really whiffed it at the end, and it didn't really explain anything, and it was just one long puzzle box without resolution. And I'm like, no, everything was explained. Everything but one small thing from season 5 was explained, and that small thing was the outrigger shooting at them when they were traveling through time. But I digress. My point is that Star Fox Adventures reminds me of that too, because it doesn't really spell out a whole lot for you. You have revelations, and then you have to go back and plug in those revelations to earlier mysteries. It doesn't hold your hand and say, oh, that's why that happened. You have to think about it. You have to use your brain beyond the times you spend playing the game. And that's why I adore Star Fox Adventures, and that's probably why a lot of people don't have a very high opinion of the mythology around this game. But I think it's great. I think it's one of Rare's best. I will fight it. I will defend this game until my dying breath, and then I will still come back as a ghost or a little reincarnated baby, and I will bite your ankles due to my love for this game.
Yeah, I think I like ultimately with some crystal encased caveats, like the story of Star Fox Adventures. I think that some of it in like can get a little clunky just by nature of it being kind of two plots slammed together with limited development time, resulting in a lot of stuff getting massaged and like pretty like sliced out with extreme prejudice. But I do think it is understandable, and I do really like what it adds to the Star Fox universe.
We discussed Dinosaur Planet aplenty last season on the Kongversation, and seeing where the Dinosaur Planet story was going sort of parallel to where Star Fox Adventures presented it. You're right, they did slice out quite a bit. They did an extensive hack and slash to their mythology, to their storyline, to the just backstory and revelations in Dinosaur Planet to make it work within the context of the Lylat system of Star Fox. I think they did a brilliant job. They really got rid of all the chaff, of all the stuff they didn't need when it's a Star Fox game. I think it's actually stronger in some cases than what Dinosaur Planet would have been. And I say that without having really played the final realized vision of Dinosaur Planet. So there's that. Like, I don't want to be comparing the two back and forth. I want to celebrate Star Fox Adventures on its own merits, which I think it has aplenty. But, you know, it is interesting all the same to compare them.
We also like lost a lot of like explicit explanations for things that were in
Yeah.
Dinosaur Planet, I think. But at the same time, like, kind of like with Lost again, like, I think it's okay if some things aren't explained to you and you're left to wonder. Like, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
I like
Yeah.
not quite knowing what the Krazoa's deal is.
Yeah, and I think for a fandom like ours, and when I say fandom like ours, I'm specifically referring to DK Vine and all of the like-minded weirdos we include as readers and listeners of this podcast. But we're people who are always thinking about the lore, thinking about the world of the games, and we're always filling in the blanks anyway, right? So when a game comes along and has such a rich, deep mythology, and it doesn't fully say, this is why point A led to point B and gave us C, I appreciate that because it does lay out all the pieces we need. We just have to put together the puzzle. And I feel like it respects your intelligence, even if it's just they didn't have time, they whatever, I like when a product, a piece of media doesn't talk down to me. And whether that is implicit or just a factor of behind the scenes shenanigans, it doesn't really matter. I still really enjoy the experience. That's why Lost is still one of my favorite shows of all time. And like Lost could have been really stupid. It was a show for the ABC network. A show for a major American network generally plays it pretty safe. And Lost had, the full 24 episode season orders at the beginning. You don't expect that kind of storytelling in something like that, which is why it's such a rarity, which is why it's so divisive to this day. But I think Star Fox Adventures pretty much does the same thing. And a lot of that is compromised due to the impending buyout, due to it having, at all costs, it has to come out September 2002. So they maybe cut some corners, they excised some plot, they didn't make some things quite clear, but it's all there. Everything you need is there. Even stuff that's more ambiguous, that's more of a mystery, like you said, the deal with the Krazoas. We never quite know their full agenda, but we can surmise it. And that is still plenty satisfying. So, on this episode of the Kongversation, so originally my plan was we're gonna do 2 more parts of the Star Fox Adventure Spotlight series. And my thinking was we'll do, in the first part, we'll do like we like to do, talking about pre-release hype, the build, the anticipation, and the controversies leading into release day. And then we're just going to break up the game into 2 halves, right? Cleave it down the middle like we like to do. But when I was breaking down this episode, I realized, it's going to make for a much more enjoyable experience for both us, the host, the presenters, and the listeners, if we do something a bit different. And so on this episode, we are talking about the story, the lore, and the characters. So we're going to be talking about pretty much the entire game on this episode. On part 3, we're going to get a little bit deeper into the weeds and talk about the gameplay itself, some boss fights, the more traditional, this is us playing the game, this is what it feels like, this is what we enjoy, this is what we didn't like. We're also going to be discussing the soundtrack. We're going to be taking your calls, by the way. So if you have any thoughts on Star Fox Adventures, please call in to the DK Vine hotline at 1-202-630-VINE. It's 8463. Please call in before October 15th, 2022. 1 p.m. Now, let's say 12 p.m. Eastern Time is your cutoff. All things considered. We'll take your calls on part 3, but we're going to be saving that stuff for part 3. This is going to be the lore, cast, and mythology episode where we're going to talk about everything from beginning to end, but it's not going to be a traditional linear structure. And because Star Fox Adventures is so rich in its tapestry, in its backstory, and I really want to just be able to talk freely about all the twists, all the reveals, how they relate to one another, without worrying about, oh, we need to save that Andross reveal for the end. Because, yeah, that works great in the context of playing the game. But when you want to reminisce about it 20 years later, it doesn't make for the most enjoyable, freeing podcast repartee. So that's what we're doing. I hope it works. I hope you appreciate it. This is a hard one to break down. It's a tough, it's a tough, what are the eggs called again? Puck eggs?
Yeah.
It's a tough puck egg to crack. So I think this is the best way. I think this will work, but let's talk about the story, the basic story, the one that's presented to you when you open the game case and pull out the instruction manual. And when I say pull out the instruction manual, I am being literal, because we're going to read the literal story found in the GameCube. I pulled out my case and I took a picture of this with my phone. I scanned it.
This is an interesting one because it's still in the era where, like, you would get story that's not necessarily in the game itself. Because as cutscene heavy as Star Fox Adventures is, this is more like background info.
And it's important background info, because this tells us so much about where Team Star Fox is.
I mean, it does call it background story in the manual as well. So, I mean, it's,
right.
It's advertising what it is.
Yeah. So, just to be clear, Star Fox Adventures, you know, we get so hung up on Dinosaur Planet and how it relates to Rare Shared Universe that we often lose sight, at DK-Bind at least, we often lose sight of how Star Fox Adventures followed up on Star Fox mythology. And Star Fox Adventures is very much a narrative sequel to Star Fox 64. I say Star Fox 64 more than Star Fox for the Super Nintendo, because I feel like it is just, it's more of a direct sequel to that than Star Fox, and Star Fox being this nebulous.
I mean, there's no ambiguity at all. Like, it's directly following off from it, like, with context.
I know Star Fox 64 is sort of a remake of the original Star Fox. And I guess if I was more into the pre-SFA games, I would, make the case that, no, they could both still work in continuity. Just like Star Fox Zero can work in continuity with Star Fox 64 and Star Fox for the Super Nintendo, just varying degrees of, these are different views of the same events, or maybe the events happened stacked on top of each other.
I guess, importantly, considering, like, at this point in time, Star Fox 2 still had not released, and, like, it was not too many circles really knew about it. This is as far as most people knew, the first time a Star Fox, like, entry had directly continued on from a previous one, and, like, built-in passage of time.
Yeah, and that makes me wonder, now that Star Fox 2 is an acknowledged released product, it was included with the Super Nintendo Classic, I wonder...
And you can play it on Nintendo Switch Online as well.
Oh, that's right. I wonder if, we ever get a chronological follow-up to what we call the Dinosaur Planet Trilogy, Adventures, Assault, and Command. I wonder if we will see an incorporation of Star Fox 2 elements where, that did happen between Star Fox / Star Fox 64 / Star Fox Zero.
I at least hope the characters it introduced are now in the toy box along with, like, Krystal.
I imagine they will be. I mean, it's hard to say with Nintendo because, Nintendo's always so wishy-washy on following up on any lore for the most part. You have to bring in an outside agent to really make them embrace, the totality of their history and not get hung up on inter-office politics. But I'm hopeful, and I think you can make it all work. I think if you really wanted, you could say, yes, Star Fox 64, and Star Fox Zero are all canon. And Star Fox 2 happened, and then Star Fox Adventures and Assault and Command, and you can make space for Starlink and Super Smash Brothers, and everything works, There's everybody gets so just worked up about Star Fox has been rebooted. It's like, no, look, Krystal still appeared in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, When you say Star Fox has been rebooted, it doesn't mean that we can never go back to the events of these games. They're just retelling the same game again and again. It doesn't mean the events of the later games are invalidated.
I mean, bottom line, everything's connected if you try hard enough.
Right, exactly. We're the people who say Donkey Kong Land 2 can be a separate adventure, so, we shouldn't limit ourselves with Star Fox either.
Yeah, in this story, we don't have to limit ourselves. Why don't you go on, Hyle?
So the background story, and I'm going to read this as transcribed, precisely from the instruction manual. So, 8 years have passed since Andross was finally overthrown by the daring Star Fox team. Following the celebrations, Fox McCloud and friends returned to the only life they knew, an endless patrol of the Lylat System, guarding against ongoing threats to their territory. Boredom soon struck, causing Fox's close friend Falco Lombardi to simply disappear. Poof. Leaving only rumor to suggest that his lone wolf nature had finally led him to pursue a more free and profitable life. Then Slippy Toad traded his pilot's wings for a place in weapons R&D, demonstrating a natural flair for invention, while Fox's old friend and mentor, Peppy Hare, retired from active flight duty to concentrate on a role as navigator and general advisor. The Great Fox itself had also seen better days. Keeping a ship of that size in prime condition cost serious money, and well-paid jobs for fighter pilots and mercenaries were increasingly difficult to come by. So it was that Fox & Co. found themselves drifting through the galaxy, waiting and hoping for General Pepper's hologram to pop up with just the kind of high-stakes, high-reward mission that they needed. So, yeah, this is a really good setup.
I love the place this starts the Star Fox team in, and by that I mean a bad place after Star Fox 64.
Yeah, Rare's always been really good at taking the, let's say, fantastical, the otherworldly, the high concept, and dragging it down into the mud with the rest of us. Rare and Playtonic both do this really well, where they can have this far out, crazy environment, setting, cast, whatever, and just root it into the mundane to make you, the player, understand and empathize what everyone's going through. And I love that they're one crack at Star Fox. They're one crack at another Nintendo property outside of Donkey Kong, or at least a pre-existing Nintendo property that they themselves didn't create with the implicit understanding that it would be a Nintendo IP, and then, things happen like buyouts. But I like that they were like, okay, how do we make Star Fox relatable for the shiftless slackers who make up our fan base?
Yeah, and in addition to Rare, I will extend credit to Imamura as well, who really wanted this progression for the team.
Yeah.
In an interview, they've asked him why he wanted the 8-year time skip, and said was thinking up a justification for why those 4 characters might reunite to fight the enemy, and I figured that after 8 years, a few things had to have changed. Peppy might still old to be piloting a fighter, things like that. And they decided 8 years seemed like a nice window of time. I think it also nicely sets up it kind of sets up the cast in such a way to justify why Fox is the only one on active duty on the planet.
Yeah, well, it's really clever the way they structured all of this. And can I just say to the 8-year time skip, it seems dramatic at first, because especially if you're thinking, well, Star Fox 64 it's only 5 years roughly before Star Fox Adventures. Why go full 8 years? But if you go on from Star Fox for the Super Nintendo, it was 1993. So that there's a 9-year gulf between the first Star Fox and Star Fox Adventures. So 8 years is actually relatively the same amount of time where those events were first presented to us. And then we're picking up with Star Fox Adventures.
I feel like it's also a very believable frame of time for like Fox's personality to have shifted so dramatically between games, because this takes him from, I think he was 19 in the first game, to like his mid-20s. And like, I think a lot of people can relate to the idea of listlessly floating, being in your mid-20s and feeling like you're listlessly floating through space, twiddling your thumbs, and like just living in squalor and surviving off of takeout or pizza delivery.
Yeah, I think that...
And kind of feeling like the world did you wrong.
Yeah, I think that everybody I know in my friend circle who are millennials or Gen Z have encountered the mid-20s smackdown of depression and ennui and just not knowing like where your life is going. It's happened to all of us that I know, and it's also happened to Fox. and I love it. I think it's like I said, it's a way to really make the character of Fox McCloud, who in Star Fox 64 was the, square-jawed, do-gooder without fault, without flaw. The only flaw he might have is to be a little naive or unassuming. And here, Fox is just, he's so relatable in some ways, and he's also just he's overcome with agitation at where his life has gone over every aspect of his existence and what he's asked to do. He's just ready to lash out. And sometimes that can be a bit much depending on where you are, your headspace is coming into this game and when you're playing it, but it's totally believable.
Yeah, I kind of like when my player character in a game is a little bit bristly. So I kind of like Fox. I'm looking it up now. He might have been 18 in 64, but like I like that there's like he's ultimately still a good person, but he is definitely like pretty jaded, pretty cynical, very easily frustrated. They get a lot of really good mileage out of the facial animations in this game, and giving Fox these like rolling eyes takes, or like exasperated sighs, or just like furrowed brows. And it's a really, I think, satisfying kind of like swerve from the ending of Star Fox 64, because Star Fox 64 kind of has this like kind of promising and the adventure continues ending where Fox turns down General Pepper's offer to join the military.
Yeah.
Saying like, no, we want to do things our own way.
Yeah.
And turns out when you're a gun for hire with principles and you just ended the biggest conflict in known galactic history, you might have just kind of destroyed the market for your own job.
It's similar to what happened to the Ghostbusters after the first Ghostbusters movie. They put themselves out of business. And, if you're fighting this apocalyptic threat that brings in all of this spiritual turmoil from other planes of existence to Manhattan, and your whole business is built upon this idea of we are getting rid of this uptick in ghost, getting rid of the source of that might be bad for business. And they effectively, they brought peace to the Lylat system. They ended Andross's insurgency. And it turns out, there's not a whole lot for freelance fighter pilots to do at that point that the military can't handle. So it's ingenious. Gibbon says in the live stream that this is par for the course for Rare, aging up the characters and putting them in a bad spot to dig themselves out of. Yeah, Donkey Kong Country is also very similar. However you may view the modern Donkey Kong, whether you view him as the aged up Donkey Kong Jr. or not, indisputably Cranky Kong is the aged up Donkey Kong Sr. from the arcades. And Donkey Kong Country was much in the same way, where we're going to start with this aged up character. He's going to be in his mid-20s, roughly. He's going to be kind of lackadaisical, and he's kind of caught off guard. I was almost said in guard, because just my natural inclination when talking about Donkey Kong. And then he's going to have to build, sort of fight his way out of this pit he's been thrown into, figuratively. And in this case, it's getting his bananas back, and also, training his little protege that he didn't want, but he grows to love and sort of finds endearing, and they become inseparable by the end, which is exactly what happens with Fox, basically. He has a little protege he doesn't want as well in this game, and it's just, it is like applying the formula of Donkey Kong Country to Fox McCloud, but it works, because the context is just different enough. It's just a little bit different than what we saw, and also this is more cutscene heavy, more dialogue heavy, it's a lot more implicit, where in Donkey Kong Country it's kind of implied just based on, our takeaway from the beginning and the end of the game. So, anyway, but Fox McCloud, his eye roll was so prominent in this game that we turned it into an emoji on the DK Vine form, immediately. We had this Fox McCloud eye roll, because it was just that's what he does in this game. But the rest of Team Star Fox, as that backstory from the instruction manual it implied, and actually just outright said, they also haven't stayed static. And I really like that Fox is the one who clings the most to this lifestyle of being this freelance mercenary for hire, where everybody else has kind of moved on, or they broke away from Team Star Fox. I can relate to this, Cameron, being the last original DK Vine staffer still with DK Vine, and believing in this lifestyle that I've chosen for myself, while everybody else is kind of, is like, no, I'm an adult now. But I mean, it's not like they've abandoned Fox. Peppy and Slippy, at the very least, are still part of Team Star Fox. And Peppy, he is now retired. He's retired as a pilot. He was too old for that shit in Star Fox and Star Fox 64. Now he literally is too old for that shit.
It's funny, the older I get, the funnier it is just how, kind of decrepit they make Peppy come off in this game. Because, you would think looking at him in Adventures, he's at least in his mid-70s or something.
Yeah.
But, you do the math between how old he was in Star Fox 64 and how old, he would be 8 years later in this game. Do you know how old he would be, Hyle?
No.
49.
Maybe it's a little bit like Obi-Wan Kenobi, where, in A New Hope, in the original Star Wars, you think he's in his mid-70s, and he's like, yeah, he's pretty old. And then, Ewan McGregor is cast as him in the prequels, and then they have a Disney Plus interquel series between the two trilogies, and then you do the math, and you're like, wait a second, how does he turn into late 70s Alec Guinness?
I think they need to pay attention into what's all those pizzas they've been ordering.
Now, granted, we don't know how lifespans work among the different species of the Lylat system. You know, it could be that 49 is very old for a hare, for a anthropomorphic rabbit man from Corneria or whatever. But yeah, he does come across like he's, you know, on death's door. And in fact, there is something in the game that maybe even implies that Peppy isn't long for this world.
It's also, I think, partly he's been recast with Chris Seaver, who is very much doing like a stereotypical old man voice.
Right, Chris Seaver is very recognizable in his vocal roles.
Yeah, like Rick May's original Peppy, like, doesn't really lean on his age all that much.
No,
I would say.
I mean, he sounds like an old prospector. He's got that little bit of, consarnate sort of vibe to him. So I can see Chris Seaver picking that up and really running with it, really taking it to its logical finish line. But it should be pointed out the voice cast of the main Star Fox team. So Steve Malpass does Fox, and I think he does a terrific job over Fox. Like, a lot of people make fun of Fox's voice in this game and the delivery of lines, the whininess. It's a little bit, speaking of Star Wars, bordering on, but I was going to pick up power converters at Tashi Station or whatever. But it works.
Yeah, he's supposed to be whiny in this game.
Yeah.
I think it's funny, like, a lot of Fox's lines in this are just carryovers from when he was Saber, because Steve Malpass was already cast as Saber, and they kind of just massage dialogue here and there. But, like, somehow, like, cosmically, it all aligned perfectly. Like, he's a spectacular Fox McCloud.
Yeah, I don't want to say he's my definitive Fox McCloud because, Star Fox 64 is such an untouchable masterpiece when it comes to voice acting in video games, and Nintendo games at that. But I have great affection for Steve Malpass's portrayal here. I think it's wonderful. I think Chris Seaver gets recognized more for his vocal contributions simply because they used his voice in the English version of Super Smash Bros. Melee, and actually,
they used Malpass too, but
they did use Malpass.
They did, because if you play as Falco, Fox will talk instead of Falco.
Oh, that's right. Because I was like, I thought his voice actor was just his Smash voice actor, but you're right.
He's not as visible as Seaver and Cullum, but he is in there.
Okay. But yeah, Peppy, I love Peppy. And it's interesting that, Rare made the decision, Peppy should be retired at this point. And that's just partially they explain why nobody from Team Star Fox is also venturing on the planet. But this is carried over. This is an integral part of where the Star Fox story would build post-Rare, with Namco taking over the next game, where Peppy stays retired. Peppy never gets back into the R-Wing.
He's kind of taken over as mission control after this, which still lets Peppy basically have the same role, because his role in 64 is you keep him around because he will explain how things work to you, and he can still do that from the cockpit of Great Fox.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be in an R-Wing for that. And I think it's actually, I don't know how much Rare was thinking about, this will benefit future Star Fox games, because we can put Krystal in an R-Wing after this. Or if they're, I don't think they ever got that far into thinking about the grand master plan for where the franchise would go post SFA, but it works. It works so well.
I would kind of appreciate if they didn't, just this whole, let the next crew sort it out attitude.
Yeah, Star Fox does become this epic pass story throughout the 2000s, throughout the odds.
Yeah. And everybody was too cowardly to pick it up after Command.
And then, yeah, Slippy, he's now working for specifically Cornerian Weapons R&D, but he does split his time between his government work and Team Star Fox still. Like, he lives on the Great Fox, presumably, but he's working for the Canarian government, and that actually is followed up on Star Fox Assault, where we meet his father, and his father also works for Canarian Weapons R&D.
This is really a perfect turn for Slippy, and I think it's like, it feels seeded the most of any of these in Star Fox 64, because Star Fox 64 kind of paints the impression that, like, Slippy is Fox's, like, he's a really good friend of Fox. He's an absolute genius with mechanical engineering, but he's not the best pilot.
No. Infamously, you have to get him out of trouble many times, and then, you know, depending on which route you go on or what transpires, you even have to rescue him from a planet.
Yeah, he can be impulsive and reckless and not necessarily be the best at defending himself.
Yeah,
when he's behind the controls of an R-Wing.
And I admit, in Star Fox 64, I did find him annoying from time to time. Star Fox Adventures made me appreciate his character. And it's like, no, he is highly competent. He brings so much to their endeavors. He just maybe isn't the best behind, you know, the controls of an R-Wing, and that's fine. He's still capable. He's still probably better fighter pilot than I could ever be. You know, he's a fictional Toad Man, but whatever, you know.
Yeah, the team would fall apart without him because the equipment falls apart without him.
Yeah, there's a reason Q doesn't, you know, suit up next to James Bond often, you know, but sometimes he has to go out on the field, and, you know. So, yeah, it's the same thing, and Slippy, it was a great turn for his character, and it also, it allowed Team Star Fox. How do you turn Star Fox into this single-player adventure game, or rather merge it with a single-player adventure game? And they really did find good use for Peppy and Slippy, and to still have them have that rat-a-tat-tat, that back and forth, that here's some dialogue, here's some, like, overly acted characterization, but that they did it in a way that makes sense to the game that Star Fox Adventures is. And so they would be on the pause menu. You could have them pull them up for different options, and they also interject throughout the cutscenes as well.
Gibbon also pointing out in the chat, we met Beltino in the Star Fox 64 Player's Guide.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, shocking amount of, like, seeds planted in Star Fox 64 that got to pay off in this and Assault.
Yeah, when we eventually talk about Star Fox Assault on the Kongversation, it'll be interesting to really talk about how much legwork Namco did and the team behind Star Fox Assault as far as pulling from all corners of Star Fox continuity and not messing any of it up. Like, Star Fox Assault is such a brilliant follow-up to not only Star Fox Adventures, but also the earlier games, and also just lore that didn't even appear in games at that point. And I was shocked how much I love Star Fox Assault. So,
yeah.
But that's really not the time to talk. It's hard not to bring up Star Fox Assault from time to time when talking about Adventures, because it does follow up on so much of what Adventures did.
Yeah, like all the like kind of looseness of Adventures that comes from it being two concepts married into one. Assault, like, tightens. It does. So it is hard not to bring it up.
It even sort of sets up Diddy Kong Racing in some ways, which I don't even think they were trying to do, but oh my god, it works. It works so well. There's also R.O.B 64, or R.O.B the Robot, as they just call him here. So, as it says in the instruction manual, Slippy has rebuilt him several times, infusing him with much more personality. He's now considered a full-fledged member of the team, which I love. So, R.O.B 64 first debuted in Star Fox 64. He was not present in the original Star Fox. And, it's called R.O.B 64. It's a play on the old robotic operating buddy that was an NES peripheral, but, R.O.B 64 should not be confused with R.O.B, who has also appeared in things like Mario Kart DS and Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Infamously, he dashed our hopes for additional Donkey Kong characters in both.
And he's a dual reference depending on the territory, because he's also referred to as Nuss.
Yeah, so on his torso in Star Fox Adventures, they added the NUS across his torso, which was the original American term for the N64. It was the Nintendo Ultra 64, or NUS. And I love, because I adore the Nintendo Ultra 64 branding. I understand why they wanted to go with a worldwide name. I do think it's stupid to have different names per region. It's confusing. I'm glad we are more of a unified worldwide community now. But I love Nintendo Ultra 64 as branding. I love that logo. I love everything about it. I really hated when they got rid of it, and I will always lament not being able to say Nintendo Ultra 64 as Killer Instinct, so perfectly implanted into my brain. So to have that little bit of legacy carry on just in this game on R.O.B's torso, I love it. It's just this nice little parting gift from Rare.
Weirdly, even though he's described as a full-fledged member of the team, and they kind of imply he's a lot more evolved and artificial intelligence, I feel like I don't really feel that in this game, but I do feel it a lot in Command, where R.O.B gets to talk back to you, and
yeah.
A lot R.O.B I don't even think has a role on the menu screen like the rest of the team.
No, but I do appreciate that Rare just said, "Oh yeah, we're giving equal rights to the droid."
Yeah, I like the premise of it, even if I don't think it shows all that much in the game itself.
Because we're gonna keep going back to Star Wars apparently, because they are very closely linked, and you can see a lot of influence both pre-Star Fox Adventures and in Rare's work, but
especially aesthetically in this game, because the whole deal, as we explained with Star Fox, is all of their equipment is falling apart around them and is dinged up and tinged with grime.
Yeah,
which is, and it's slightly outdated, which is how most of the technology in Star Wars looks.
Yeah, there is that very lived-in element to Star Fox Adventures, and I think before and after Star Fox Adventures, Star Fox has a more metallic, vintage sci-fi sheen to it, where everything is state-of-the-art, high-tech, glossy, but here it's just covered in rust, and you just feel the weight of the world on the characters and their financial situation. But yeah, R.O.B, you're right. He's not really fully fleshed out here. It isn't until Assault where he really comes alive, figuratively, but I guess also spiritually in a sense. I think that, Rare was just we all watch Star Wars and we hate the way the droids are treated, and if they really existed with us, we would definitely treat C-3PO and R2-D2 as, real people, because they essentially are, and so, yeah, I like that. And they even...
Adventures, it does feel like R.O.B is their friend, he's not a tool.
Yeah, and they even have that little explanation that Slippy has rebuilt him several times, infusing him with more personality, so any perceived callousness you might have seen towards R.O.B in Star Fox 64 can be explained away was, well, R.O.B wasn't fully evolved yet. Now he is much more now he's much more self-aware, and so for that, he's a full-fledged member of Team Star Fox.
He can stack so many things now.
General Pepper also kind of has a surprisingly outsized presence in this game, considering you would think the first person they would cut would be General Pepper. But no, General Pepper, he's kind of the mover and the shaker of this plot. He's the whole reason, of course, Team Star Fox is on Dinosaur Planet. And I don't really have a lot to say about Pepper here.
I like the way he's kind of reframed around the dynamic of Fox being a little bit more bristly. I'd say, like, you kind of get General Pepper has this picture painted of him in Adventures of him being definitely from a different generation than Fox, and like a little bit older than Peppy. Because he's got like dad energy to him. He like one of my favorite exchanges in the game is him like being amused by his own dad joke when he says, like, for a moment I thought you weren't going to make it. And he's the one who sets the rule that Fox can't go to the planet with his gun.
Right. Yeah, and
which is a very necessary conceit for the entire game to work, but that they put it on General Pepper to be responsible for it is very funny.
Yeah, and I don't really have a clear understanding of how, like, above the board General Pepper's dealings with Team Star Fox are. Like, does the Cornerian government and the Lylat System really approve of him hiring mercenaries, to do this kind of stuff? But I like that General Pepper still, like, lays down the law and, like, this is what you can't do.
And, like, it seems like he doesn't have full intel on the situation. Like, the way he presents it, he seems to think this is a diplomatic mission.
Yeah.
Like, to figure out what's going on, and, like, maybe it can be solved without blowing the planet up.
Yeah. So I like that he sends in Team Star Fox when the situation is too hairy or too obscured for him to actually take any true military action. But yeah, I mean, I'm surprised how much Pepper is in this, considering, and I consider Star Fox Assault to be really General Pepper's true shining moment as a character, and what happens to him in that game. But I'm glad he's in there for continuity, for just the linear continuation of his character. But where's Falco? As the instruction manual said, Falco left the team because he was bored, because he didn't just like essentially being unemployed, waiting around for the next big mission. He's a thrill seeker, that Falco. So we can get into the in-universe rationale behind him leaving, but it's clear to me that Rare basically cut Falco from the main bulk of the game because it wouldn't make any sense for his character to be on the Great Fox.
Right, there's just no rational reason for Falco to be a passive character in this.
Because Falco would definitely go down to the planet with Fox. And part of that is based on his portrayal in the first two Star Fox games, but also he was just in Super Smash Bros. Melee. And, Falco kind of had been put up on that pedestal, the Kingmaker, or I guess the just newly minted Kingmaker, because Super Smash Bros. Melee, I don't know if anybody really anticipated how big that game would be. But it just makes sense not to have Falco around, because having him present in the narrative at all just raises so many questions. Like, why isn't Falco doing this? Why isn't Falco doing that? Falco would do it.
There's definitely recognition from within Nintendo of, like, well, we can't have Falco in this game, but, like, people love Falco. We can't just, like, have him not be a presence at all, which is, I think, why we got the prequel manga kind of detailing the events of him leading up to the team, leading up to him leaving the team, which kind of painted this picture as he's bored. There's increasing tension between him and Fox.
Yeah.
And he just kind of sees they have this one incident that kind of, like, involving, like, a bunch of returning Star Fox 64 elements. Like, they bring in Cat Monroe and the planet Titania. But it kind of leaves Falco in the place where he's ultimately feels like it's okay if I strike. It's okay if I strike out on my own for a little bit. Fox has proven he can take care of himself and keep the team together without me. I'll check back in sometime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's one example. I know you hold it up, Cameron. I think it's one example of sort of outside game media by Nintendo that is nebulously canon to the main events of the game series.
Yeah, there's maybe like slight contradiction at the very, very end, but I think it's unquestionably canon to this game in my mind. And it does a lot of legwork to more organically connect Star Fox 64 with Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
At least in it throws a lot more bones to you if you're like going into Adventures and wondering why you're not seeing a bunch of like Star Fox 64 Easter eggs in your face all the time.
Right.
I also I say that I've said this a lot. Falco's design in this, I like his like struck out on his own design because he looks like one of the Playmates Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles characters that don't show up in the show.
Yeah, so this is also why we're kind of doing this episode structure the way we are. Yes, Falco does eventually appear in Star Fox Adventures. They save him for the very end, where he very much Han Solos it, and he comes in sort of like lets Luke Skywalker take the final shot on a Death Star. It's not quite as dramatic as that, but he does show up in the very final battle, like, here I am, and then it just very clumsily at the end, he's like, I guess I'll rejoin the team now. It's like, what has changed, Falco? In the several years you've been away, and the last 5 minutes, not a whole lot has changed in our circumstance, but okay, sure.
He heard you were going to get paid soon.
Yeah, he's like, wow, I bet there's going to be a big paycheck coming from all that work you did down on the planet. Well, I fired a few lasers at, or I dropped
I gave you
supplies.
The bombs for him to swallow.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that without me.
Yeah, so I'll take my 25%. Thank you. But no, you're right. I love the way Falco looks. It's a very much sort of this rough and tumble sort of wilderness explorer adventurer kind of look, very much like I am on my own,
but also like a bit of like space greaser.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah. But it was the best thing you could do with Falco. That would preserve the integrity of his character. That wouldn't harm the narrative of Star Fox Adventures. Because otherwise, you would have to come up with this whole thing where Falco's like, I'm going to check out this side of the planet. And then maybe, eventually Falco is captured or something. Or
like, I don't know, you like throw him in at the beginning and he just gets his legs broken. I don't know how you could really... Which is also unsatisfying. Or
you could even have Falco take the place of Krystal in the prologue. He goes down first. He gets trapped in Krystal. And
yeah, of any... I think they picked the most satisfying route they could realistically go.
Yeah, but speaking of Krystal... So, Krystal, of course, is one of the most pronounced surviving artifacts of Dinosaur Planet. Originally, Krystal was going to be 50% of the game's plot. She was definitely going to be the co-lead with Saber. And when it became Star Fox Adventures, of course, things changed. And Krystal did change from a cat-like humanoid to a fox-like humanoid. So I guess she and Fox could have babies at some point in the future. Like there's nothing preventing cross-species fucking in the Lylat system. We see it all the time with Falco's love interest.
Yeah, I mean, that could also be another reason they made her more fox-like, is because Cat already exists.
Yeah, that's true.
Though I guess, well, Fox already exists too, so you're doubling up on species either way.
I guess they wanted biological children at some point, which, Star Fox
I mean,
Command.
it could just be when you know that you're going to make them a romantic pair, you want more parity between the characters, but...
I guess. I think she could have stayed
really
visually the same, but they definitely made her more of a, I mean, no pun intended, vixen. They definitely upped the, I don't know if I want to say sex appeal, but she's definitely more scantily clad.
I do think they massaged her design a little bit more than they needed to, and it's...
With an emphasis on massage. Well, you have some insight on Krystal's temptation to the players, to those inclined to this sort of thing. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so as I've cited a few times, there was an interview featuring Takeya Imamura that surfaced within not too long ago, really, but it was conducted in 2002, and he gave a lot of really good insights into Star Fox Adventure's development from the Nintendo side of things. So I'll just go ahead and read this excerpt where they talk about Krystal in full because it's fairly short. This is the interviewer. Which of Adventure's characters were you most attached to? Imamura. That'd be Krystal. Krystal was a character that had been around since the early versions of Dinosaur Planet, and as that game was making the transition into a Star Fox game, they asked, so should we get rid of Krystal? But I thought it'd be a waste to scrap her, so when I visited Rare, I drew a ton of pictures. Interviewer says, I think you made the right call. Imamura, there's an American comic called Vampirella that I'm really into. That character's a female vampire who wears risque costumes. And so I drew some quick sketches of Krystal with that kind of image and had a lot of discussions with Rare, and so this version of Krystal turned out to be much sexier than the Dinosaur Planet version. Interviewer, I see. Imamura, Miyamoto and I were both aiming to add a little sex appeal, I guess. I think Miyamoto's always wanted to add that flavor. Interviewer, really? Imamura, I think somewhere in his mind, Miyamoto's always pictured Star Fox as somewhat mature, and he's been saying things like, wouldn't it be good to add a slightly sexy character, since the beginning? Likewise, for Star Fox 64, although the game certainly appeals to children somewhat, I think Miyamoto felt that leaning fully into that would be going too far, and he wanted to add some more mature touches where possible.
Wow. I don't know where to begin. I have to wonder what Miyamoto has been pitching to Illumination now for the Super Mario Brothers movie. But I, think that obviously it worked. Krystal has a very devoted fan base, and some of this, maybe doesn't age the best 20 years on. This is very much the Spike TV era, 2002, where things were very much designed for the male gaze. And, I think that the original design of Krystal probably would have kept things less distracting as far as her character goes. I think that it's a shame we lost so much of her role in the story. I'm glad they didn't get rid of her. I think that would have been a bigger crime than what we got. I think they made the best out of the situation. And I think Krystal was able to really grow, in Star Fox Assault. So it worked out the best for the franchise, but she is very much just this token object for much of the game where Fox doesn't even know her. He just sees her imprisoned, and there's a little bit of bro, she's hot. And there's no real operating motive for him other than being a do-gooder, then yeah, bro, I'd hit that. And so it's, it's a little weird.
It's one of those things where it's like in a vacuum, I think that what Adventures did with the character is is kind of disappointing, knowing what she was going to be in Dinosaur Planet. But the ultimate consequence of keeping her around in the franchise, I am okay. I'm made okay with it in service of everything it was able to do with her later.
Yeah.
And I think she adds a lot to the franchise. It's good to have her around, and I hope she appears in more Star Fox games.
Yeah,
it's hard to look at where her character ended up in Adventures without feeling like, this character really suffered at the hands of making this into a Star Fox game.
Yeah,
and what specific choices they made, like turning it into a Star Fox game didn't mean they had to dress her up like Leia in Jabba's palace.
Right. I guess if you squint, you can make the case for Xena Warrior Princess, which would have been a slightly more contemporary pull, but even Xena wasn't as scantily clad as Krystal is.
It almost feels like a tongue-in-cheek joke about how much they've reduced her role.
And clothing, yeah. I don't know. It's, like I said, an unfortunate byproduct of it being 2002. But they were able to grow the character. They, being Nintendo, Namco, whomever, they were able to grow Krystal from this. And it's not like her role that is present when she's playable in the game is bad. She's a very interesting character once you get past the very obvious ploy for sex appeal. And so, it's better than excising her completely. She got better treatment than Barry got in the conversion from 12 Tales Conquer 64 to Bad Fur Day. Barry was really just reduced to, let's make her a bimbo. Let's have her serve the role effectively as bitch wife, who is just a nag to Conquer. Conquer just wants to have a good time and Barry's in the way. But don't worry, we'll make it right in the end where, we kill her and Conquer realizes, he should have valued the time he had with her. Barry was going to be the co-lead of Conquer, and she got completely whittled down to nothing. At least Krystal got a little something.
Yeah, it's basically just, it's hard to talk about Krystal without talking about what could have been and what ultimately was, which are both very, very good extremes of the character, and then you have Adventures kind of awkwardly sat in the middle. It's almost akin to this is a bit of an extreme comparison, but Barbara Gordon in The Killing Joke.
Yeah.
As Batgirl, great. As Oracle, wonderful. In The Killing Joke, kind of a prop that's some pretty nasty things are befallen in service of other characters.
Right. It's Oracle is such a perfect realization of the character, much more intriguing in my mind than Batgirl. It's just very much a shame how we had to get there. Oracle was making lemonade out of lemons, and we would have never had it without The Killing Joke, but oof, So, yeah, but Krystal's nowhere near that troublesome, but I don't know. It's weird considering how prominent a role she plays in the marketing of this game, how present she is just everywhere.
Yeah, you would think based on the promotional art that she is a 50-50 playable character.
Yeah.
Or at least like a 70-30.
Right.
But no, she's only playable in the prologue and loses her weapon immediately.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's also why her presence lingers so much throughout the game, is you are using her staff, so it's just a constant reminder of Krystal,
And her and Fox even share, most, if not all of their animations, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Like, I guess another reason to have redesigned her a little bit, really, to match them up proportionally a little bit more.
I suppose, yeah. Krystal's backstory, though, is really interesting. I don't think it gets discussed enough. So this is what it says in the instruction manual. The only surviving member of her doomed planet of Serenia, Krystal roams the galaxy in search of answers. When a distress call draws her to a small planet in the Lylat System, Krystal suspects that she may finally be drawing closer to the truth. So the whole thing with Serenia is never brought up in the game. Krystal is from a planet presumably outside of the Lylat System. She says she's searching the galaxy, and I made light of the reference to the Team Star Fox just drifting through the galaxy in the backstory, because it's just such a weird thing. Like, outside the Lylat System, really, they have like extra solar travel in Star Fox. I thought they pretty much stayed.
I think it's more about the word than like conveying the accurate sense of scale.
I guess it was really rough. It's like 20 years ago, nobody really thought much of like interchangeably using terminology like this. But I do think Krystal is from outside the Lylat System, at least, you know, outside the immediate neck of the woods so much. But it does bring a lot of questions into the mix, like, why does Krystal know the dinosaur language? Wait, do they speak the dinosaur language on her planet? Wait, what happened to her planet? Wait, did Andross destroy her planet? That's what they're implying. So, like, where is Serenia? What? Where
was Serenia?
Where was Serenia, right. So, my best guess is that it was a planet that the Krazoan civilization also had a role in. Maybe they even left Soria and went to Serenia. I don't know, but or some members of their civilization did, because there seems to be a link between Serenia and Dinosaur Planet.
Yeah, this is one of those things, like I said, where I don't feel like Star Fox Adventures really gives you a complete answer, and you're kind of left to figure out the nuts and bolts of it on your own, which is unfortunate for Krystal's case, because her entire motive for being here was finding answers.
I could only figure out the Grunty's Revenge missions of Krystal's backstory.
At least you can kind of glue together that she recognizes Andross on sight, which is either, I mean, there's multiple ways to view that. You could view it as she recognizes, like, says, "It's you," meaning, oh, it's you that destroyed Serenia. Or, oh, it's you, you're the evil presence that the Earthwalkers were telling me Scales brought here.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that the simplest answer is that, well, let's get into the lore, the deeper lore a little bit, because we might be getting ahead of ourselves here. This is why we had to break up this episode, because there's no way to talk about, oh, Krystal came to Krazoa Palace on the back of a Cloud Runner.
It's again, like, we have to, because of the way these two things are married, we have to like, go into Star Fox lore and then Dinosaur Planet lore.
Yeah. And Krystal is such this weird thing, because, yeah, there's so much backstory there that
she's
brought
straddling
up.
the line between both, because she's kind of like the stitching where the two meet.
Yeah. And then we have to talk about Andross and what Andross's ghost was up to. And it's just, that's why I've been dreading this for 10 years. Like, I knew I wanted to do a spotlight, but I was like, I'm going to save it for the 20th, because I don't know how to handle that. But before we get into the lore and the whole story of what's happening, let's get into General Scales, who is presented to us, at the very least, as the main antagonist of Star Fox Adventures. His shadow is being cast on the box art. So General Scales is this bitter, aggrieved leader of the Sharpclaw tribe on Dinosaur Planet, and the Sharpclaw have been rejected as a ruling class. They don't like the Sharpclaw much on Dinosaur Planet. So Scales is leading a planet-wide mutiny so the Sharp Claw can take control. And to do that, he wants to, he has to destabilize the planet, create chaos, and then seize control that way. And to destabilize the planet, to inherently cause everything to fall apart, he has to make it literally fall apart. And to do that, he steals the MacGuffins of the game, the spell stones. Now, we'll get into what the spell stones are and everything that entails, but it's suggested at the onset that this is just his idea, that he came up with this plan. Yeah, I'm going to steal the spell stones, and then the planet's going to break apart, and then every tribe is going to be thrown into chaos, and then I'm going to come in and take control. And I've got all this weird technology, but where did that come from? Well, it's coming from an unknown benefactor, and in fact, everything General Scales is doing, he's being pushed in that direction. Who's doing that? Well, it's Andross. I've said Andross how many times now? It's Andross. Andross is behind everything in Star Fox Adventure, but it's not just Andross. Okay, because it'd be one thing if it was just Andross and he went boogity, 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 I've been here this whole time. Hoo-ha. That'd be one thing. But they acknowledge the fact that you did destroy Andross in Star Fox 64. Andross is canonically deceased when Star Fox Adventures kicks in. It is the ghost of Andross that is pulling all this. And the whole reason he's doing all of this is so he can resurrect himself Palpatine style. So, the very memed line from Rise of Skywalker, where Poe says, somehow Palpatine has returned, and it's presented as this huge groan-worthy moment, because Rise of Skywalker isn't going to explain how Palpatine came back, not explicitly, right? That's basically the entire story of Star Fox Adventures.
Yeah, we actually do get the explanation of how he returned. It's still like a little bit weird in terms of like, well, okay, but how did a ghost engineer this to happen?
Right.
Like that's left to your imagination, but like also we've seen ghosts in Star Fox before because with like kind of wishy-washy explanation because we've seen James McLeod.
Yeah. And I think it works too when you realize that Andross had a whole lot of infrastructure left behind from his previous insurgencies in a Lylat system. So you can easily say the ghost of Andross, if he developed sort of this corporeal manifestation and he was able to influence people and the environment around him, he could easily just say, here, I left this treasure trove of weaponry behind here, grab it.
He's a guy who you could definitely imagine had contingencies, and I think like even stories like surrounding this, like bookending this game would run with this, like the prequel manga, like spoilers for that, has a group of his loyalists like resurrecting him in a cloning tank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker reference.
Right.
And like in Command, it's established like he has an AI with his personality as like a security system.
And yeah, so I like that this doesn't cheapen Star Fox 64 or the original Star Fox in any way. Like, no, you did defeat Andross, but Andross is always 12 steps ahead. He has contingencies, as you said. He has backup plans. And this is effectively one long scheme to resurrect himself, bodily resurrect himself. And to do that, he has to pull a very, very long con on the Sharp Claw, on the denizens of Dinosaur Planet. And so, yeah, that's the big twist at the end of the game. But that ties into everything, really, like why Krystal is abducted. Krystal is basically used. She is encased in Krystal, as both a channeling rod and also as motivation for Fox to bring back the Krazoa spirits, as literal crystal blue persuasion for Fox to basically do what Andross wants you know? And it's not like Fox is doing things that aren't beneficial. He needs to save Dinosaur Planet, and he is doing what he needs to do to save Dinosaur Planet. It's just Andross is counting on him to do this. So, you know, it doesn't feel like it cheapens everything you've done as a player. You still feel accomplished. You still feel like you pulled it off. But, of course, the mastermind villain, very old trope, he's always got, you know, several fingers in the pie, and he knows exactly what your next move is going to be, and you just have to barely come out ahead at the end and call it a victory. Well, let's get into a little bit of the deeper mythology behind Dinosaur Planet itself, Cameron. And before we do that, we have to talk about the weirdness, the weird historical incongruity in Star Fox lore. The fact that out of all goddamn things, there was already a dinosaur planet in Star Fox lore. Very, very odd considering how loosey-goosey Star Fox lore was, how little of it there was, and of all the things, of all the obscure pieces of trivia, there was already a dinosaur planet. Keep in mind, Star Fox Adventures did not start off as Star Fox Adventures. Rare wasn't making a game called Dinosaur Planet being like, finally, we can pay off that piece of Star Fox lore. This was never supposed to be a Star Fox game. Do you want to explain this, Cameron?
Yeah, so is this an excerpt from the Super Nintendo manual?
Yes, for the original Star Fox, at least the English translation.
So here we go. Fortuna is also known as the Dinosaur Planet and is prowled by untamed and brutal creatures. Andross has fed and gained control of these brutes and plans to turn them into living weapons. The giant dragon, Monarch Dodora, is the living spirit of this planet and has powers exceeding state-of-the-art weapons. His name is feared throughout the Lylat System. So, like, not only on a base level do you just have, like, out and out the name Dinosaur Planet in there, you have Andross menacing dinosaur-like creatures and a living spirit of the planet.
Yes, so much of it sort of lines up parallel with what Rare was going to do with Dinosaur Planet and even with what we got with Star Fox Adventures. And this was never the plan. Let's be clear here. They didn't say, oh, we could make Dinosaur Planet Fortuna, as mentioned in the Star Fox instruction manual. This was never linked. And in fact, Fortuna is not the same planet as what we would then be known as Sauria. And yeah, so you would think that this was an intentional thing that Rare picked up, or you would think that during the process of turning it into Star Fox Adventures, somebody would have realized, oh my god, we've been given this golden gift through this incredible coincidence. Let's run with it and turn the planet, Dinosaur Planet, into Fortuna, and then it's already there in the lore, and we can just develop it from there. They didn't do that, though, and I think part of the reason why, assuming they knew this existed at all, was because in Star Fox 64, the planet that was supposed to be Fortuna was called Fushina, or Fuchina. And this was an error they corrected in later games, starting in Star Fox Assault, and I think Star Fox 64 3D renamed it properly.
Yes, it does, because they brought back Fortuna and Fuchina as separate planets in Assault. And
yes.
Fortuna is very much... Like, I can kind of see why it would be called the Dinosaur Planet in the context of Assault, not because dinosaurs are roaming around, but because it's very, like, lush, like, prehistoric-looking vegetation everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and Fuchina is a snow planet.
But this does just seem like something that somebody would have been kicking themselves, like, discovering after the fact.
Yeah.
Especially because it's weird that Dinosaur Planet goes the entirety of Star Fox Adventures only being called Dinosaur Planet.
Right. And it's a proper noun, Dinosaur Planet, capital letters, and it's also that in the instruction manual for Star Fox calling Fortuna Dinosaur Planet as a proper noun, but
like it's like if you just called Earth Hairless Ape Planet.
Right, which is actually a much preferable term in my mind, but it is odd, and like I said, I think the reason Rare, even if they knew this, didn't run with it is because of the confusion that Star Fox 64 presented, and that would have been the most recent example, so maybe they just decided to sidestep it, but...
And I guess it also, if they establish that, like, Adventures paints the picture that Dinosaur Planet is, like, in the Lylat system, but, like, so far off the map that it, like, may as well not be.
Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because it's not like it's a Pluto or Planet X situation, because it's pretty sunny there, it's close enough to the sun where it's not just completely a desolate rock,
No, you got a sandy beach on Dinosaur Planet.
Yeah, so... that's a bit odd, but, we just roll with it. Whatever. Maybe it's
whatever. It's magic.
Yeah, So it's got a weird orbit somehow. Well, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. This almost reminds me. So the Mandela effect, right? Where people claim that they're sure something that they remember happened, and that a bunch of people remember it this way, and so the only logical explanation is that somehow the timeline shifted or realities were merged. We crossed, made a cross section with another reality, and then our own history or memories of something became askew. It's called the Mandela effect because so many people seem to remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s and never having been released, never becoming president of South Africa. And I certainly don't have any memories of that. Like I remember the history as we know it, of Nelson Mandela, but I have fallen under the sway of the Mandela effect in other areas. For example, the Fruit of the Loom logo, the underwear brand Fruit of the Loom. Here, there is this idea that the Fruit of the Loom logo used to have a cornucopia on it. The little curved, like horn looking thing that the fruit was actually in, and that's how I remember it when I was a kid. And as it turns out, the company Fruit of the Loom has no recollection of that logo ever existing, nor is there any actual evidence of it ever having a cornucopia, but so many people, including myself, remember it that way. And so it almost feels like this is maybe a reverse Mandela effect, where this little artifact slipped into our history, into our timeline, and we're like, wait, how did that happen? That shouldn't be there. Get that out of here. That's wrong. But here we are. We have evidence of it. It exists, but it shouldn't exist given how history played out.
It's weird, and I do think, like, Sauria in, like, giving the planet the name Sauria in Assault, like, they don't really give you context as to why or how it changed, but it does feel like Dinosaur Planet should just have had a name like that all along, because it's a weird thing to call a planet. Especially in the context of the way the Dinosaur Planet language works.
Just for clarification, Namco in Star Fox Assault, when they brought back Dinosaur Planet, they gave it the proper name of Sauria. Oh, it's always been called Sauria. Dinosaur Planet is just this kind of ad hoc nickname that everybody gets it. Which why do you come up with a nickname that's longer than the name of something? I don't know, but
between like clearly separating Fortuna and Ficina by making it clear, like, no, Fortuna is the plant planet and Ficina is the ice planet. Like, and Sauria is Dinosaur Planet. Then Namco did a ton of like planet name cleanup in Assault.
Yeah, which I really do like the Sauria name. It's just easy, and so that's why we use Sauria interchangeably with Dinosaur Planet. And why we even do it when we're talking about Star Fox Adventures, because it's just like, oh yeah, that should have always been there, and we'll just squint and pretend like, it was called Sauria in Star Fox Adventures, just no characters actually called it that, because they all prefer the weird nickname of Dinosaur Planet, which is just interchangeable. I guess before we move on, we should discuss the thing that a lot of people remember about Star Fox Adventures, and a lot of people make fun of Star Fox Adventures for. And that is the Dino language, which is called Saurian in retrospect. Retroactively, I guess it's Saurian, but
I think it's like a completely fan-made designation for it, but also it's just logical because we call it Saurian now, so this would be Saurian.
Yeah, but in the actual instruction manual, at least, it's called Dino. Just speak Dino. So I love that Rare took the time to include this because, look, the Dino language, this isn't Klingon, right? This isn't a, like, Elvish language in Lord of the Rings. This is just...
No, it's just a substitution cipher.
It's a cipher, yeah. It's stupid. It's just a very blunt thing. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. When I say it's stupid, I mean in an endearing way. But it's not complex at all.
It's fun in the way that like B-movie sci-fi is.
Yeah.
So I love it for that, even if it does have some like rules that don't hold up under scrutiny.
No, but I love that Rare was proud enough of it that they wanted to run with it and include a little part in the instruction manual where you, at home, kids, can learn how to speak Dino. Imagine talking back to your parents in Dino. So it says the language has been spoken on Dinosaur Planet for thousands of years since their first encounter with off-worlders. Before that, they got by with grunts and roars. A few still do, but most have adopted this relatively new language. You can use this language to write secret messages to your friends, and maybe even try speaking it too. I love this, like, hey, fuck those teachers. They'll never know what your notes you're passing or saying in class if you use Dino. All the kids post 9/11 were using Dino. Yeah, so what's interesting about this is it implies that the language has been spoken on Dinosaur Planet for thousands of years, but by the dinosaurs, like the dinosaurs devised it. I've always taken it to be a creation of the Krazoa. Like, in the context of the game itself, the fact that Krystal knows it and seems to speak it natively, I don't know how we're supposed to take that. Like, where were the actual...
It could just be like a shared ancient language like Latin. Like,
I guess, yeah. Yeah, always with the ancient aliens, these games. I think that whether or not it was the Krazoa that maybe were the off-worlders that they speak of, because, you know, it's possible that the Krazoa and were like this traveling group of colonizers, you know, and they like set up roots on every magical planet they could find. Like, this planet has vast magical properties. Let's build a temple here. Let's build a shrine there. And it is possible they brought this language, and it is Krazoan, and they are the off-worlders that they speak of. We just don't know. It's one of those things where it's left up to us.
So this language is very fun, and it leads to like some fun pronunciations because I think the way the combinations of letters this sometimes takes lead to things that aren't like phonetically the most straightforward.
No.
And I kind of get the impression in some of these that like the Rare voice cast was kind of winging it.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's fun to like reverse engineer some of the things they say.
So so we should explain exactly how you do it. So you can write notes to your friends, people. So the vowels are the important part, right? You rearrange the vowel sounds, right? So English is A, and that becomes U in Dino. So you take an A, make it a U. Take an E, you make it an O. Take an I, you make it an A. Take an O, you make it an E. Take a U, you make it an I. Have you got that? Everybody's following along? All right. The letter M, however, remains the same. So M is always M. Mario's hat would be understood on Sauria.
Mario's hat would be the same either way because of the one rule where this all falls apart, but let's get through the rest of it first.
Yeah, okay, so the letter Y in English is translated to the number 0 in Saurian, and I do not understand what the hell that means.
I think what it means is it becomes an O, but in like online translators, it's designated as a 0. I should give a nod real quick. If you want to kind of fiddle with Saurian language without having to like do all of this by hand, there is a very handy Saurian translator at saurian.crystalarchive.com.
Uh-huh.
And they, I think, kind of denote whether something is translated directly from a vowel or substituted from a Y by marking it with a 0.
Yeah, okay.
Even
that
though,
makes
like,
sense.
phonetically, they're both the letter O.
Yeah, so you can have two O's, and an O can either be an E or a Y, I guess, in the actual language.
Like the word you, as in you from off of Mr. Pants, would be ue.
And then it says, step 4, rearrange the remaining letters as follows. So it's like, all right, have you followed along now? All right, here's the rest. And B in English becomes R in Dino. C becomes S. D becomes T. F becomes V. G becomes W. H becomes X. J becomes Z. K becomes B. L becomes C, and N becomes D. Oh, and then P becomes F, Q becomes G, R becomes H, S becomes J, T becomes
Riveting.
K, V becomes L, W becomes N, X becomes P, and Z, of course, say it with me, becomes Q.
What this leads to is a lot more X's in sentences than there usually are, which makes things kind of confusing to read.
A little bit, yeah.
Aloud.
Yeah.
But it's very fun. Like, you and me, I know, have, like, over the years had fun just, like, with wisecracks of talking about Star Fox Adventures, but, like, writing it out in Saurian.
Right, yeah.
Because we know that anybody who cares will just translate it with the translator.
You know,
to figure it out.
Cameron, what am I saying when I say, Auk Rikj?
I don't know.
I'll let the people at home translate that. Why do I have to do it? I've already given you the tools you need to translate.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to listen back to it several times, like I had to do when I transliterated the thing the Queen says.
Hold on. Tedboo. Hold on, that doesn't work. No, I was gonna translate Donkey Kongs into something, but Donkey Kong would just be Donkey Kong because it's a proper noun. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the rule where everything kind of falls apart. So according to the rules of Dino language, the names of people and places are not affected, remaining in their original language, which makes sense when you're, say, talking about Fox McCloud or Corneria, things that are not native to dinosaur planets. What does not make sense is when, say, General Scales, which is an English word and an English like military rank,
right,
are paired together for a character who is a Saurian native. So you get the famous line, "Dado sud tuvok General Scales."
Famous line, yeah.
Like Krazoa Palace. What's a palace?
Yeah, maybe that's a clue that the Krazoa didn't come up with this language. If Krazoa Palace is already a proper noun on Sauria, but I guess General Scales might be what Andross calls him. It's a rank and a designation given to him by Andross. So that's a clue, Cameron, that General Scales is getting help from an off-worlder. You see,
yeah, I don't know.
It all makes sense.
It's goofy and it doesn't entirely line up, but it's fun. I think the gibberish cutscenes are fun.
I mean, it makes me laugh. It makes me crack a smile every time. So it's.
I mean, one of the best moments in the game, I think, is when Fox meets the Queen for the first time, And she starts giving a speech in a language he doesn't understand, and he just shuts down mentally because he's not prepared to deal with this.
Right. He's like the ignorant foreigner traveling in a different country, and he's just he's like, oh, I didn't do any prep work for this. Oh, I'm just strolling in my Hawaiian shirt, expecting everybody to part ways for me, and oh, I'm in over my head.
General Pepper was right to not let you have a gun, Fox.
Yeah. Should be pointing out that the whole thing with Fox having a blaster, the first time he canonically had a blaster was Smash Brothers, right?
At least in games. I think in the Nintendo Power comics he might have had one. But, like, as far as, like, in-game depictions...
A blaster is a very obvious sci-fi weapon to give a character like this, but all the same, I like to think of it as Rare acknowledging that Smash Brothers is canon.
Like he says, like, my blaster, like,
right.
he does use it. It's not just, like, a thing he wanted to bring specifically to this mission.
Alright, the Krazoa, the Krazoans, and Krazoa Palace, since we just mentioned it, they are this huge, heavy part of the lore and the backstory to this game. Now, the Krazoa, as far as we know, up until this point, they're all no more. They've all died out. They're still very present as spirits, as ghost and ghostly energy that are populating the planet. But as far as living Krazoa go, there are no more Krazoa. Krazoa Kranoa, because they're all dead.
Yeah, this was something that I don't think was evident to me until the leak, the floodgates opened and the original Dinosaur planet leaked. Because I didn't completely understand if the implication was the Krazoas all died and like they were ancient race and they all are long dead, or are Krazoa spirits just like naturally, like, are they like Boos in Mario, where they're not necessarily dead people, they're just like born ghosts?
I think the implied thing is that the Krazoa were definitely this outsized race on Sauria at some point in its history, and were responsible for many things, including
the WarpStone and Krazoa Palace.
Well, and also keeping it so that the planet didn't break apart. Like, they're the ones who saved Sauria from its natural extinction.
Well, again, I think Dinosaur Planet and 64, like, all the details we've learned have helped, like, more definitively fill in some of these blanks with them.
Yeah.
But there's enough there for you to draw your own conclusions as to what the heck's going on with them.
I like that it's a little ambiguous and that we don't really know for sure, just like it would be if we brushed up upon this ancient magical civilization that is no longer around and we just kind of have to piece together the history. I like that Fox and everybody is just sort of dropped into this situation, and at the end of the game, we still don't really have all the answers, but it's where we can infer quite a bit.
And I kind of like this, like, this sort of, because both Fox and Andross are trying to use tap into the power of the Krazoa for their own ends. You're kind of left with like this ambiguous morality of them. Because
a lot of what we perceive as the Krazoans doing throughout the game is actually Andross gaslighting Fox. There is this sinister underlying feeling to the Krazoa up until the reveal and the restoration of the planet, where we see the Krazoa. The real Krazoa, I guess, agenda is just to save Sauria. But the whole thing with the mighty Krazoan god that's talking to Fox throughout the game, that's actually just Andross fucking with him, trying to get him to bring the Krazoa back to this fulcrum, this central point in Krazoa Palace, where he can channel into the crystal he's encased Krystal, the character, in.
And, like, to be clear, it's not like, it's not as if Fox was, like, fooled to the extent of, like, oh, if you just did nothing, Andross wouldn't have won. It's, you're kind of left with you have to help Andross, because if you don't, the planet is just going to break apart and explode.
Right, even if Fox knew that Andross was pulling the strings here, he does have to basically do what Andross wants. It's a no-win situation because the planet is going to continue to break apart and eventually blow up and eradicate all the dinosaur tribes, every life form on Sauria, and the explosion of Sauria could have devastating impacts on other parts of the Lylat system. As General Pepper says at the beginning of the story, a little bit dramatically, but he's right. Like a planet that blows up in such a densely populated,
that is a rain of asteroids.
Yeah, right. So that could have catastrophic impact, no pun intended, on several other planets throughout the Lylat system. So a lot is at stake here. It is an apocalyptic event that is proceeding, and it's all a bit woo-woo, magic, ancient races, ancient aliens maybe, but it all kind of works together as a piece together. And that brings us to the Spellstones, the aforementioned MacGuffins throughout Star Fox Adventures, and the Force Point Temples. Now, the Force Point Temples, there's only two. The Volcano Force Point Temple and the Ocean Force Point Temple. So you might think, oh, there are 4 Spellstones. There are 4 temples. No, there's two. There's two. Each spell,
might have used to be, but
got to get the game out on time, right?
Got to consolidate these into the same temple.
So
you go back and like your path changes depending on when you visit them.
Right.
So it's not you're not just doing extremely rote backtracking.
So the Spellstones, they go into these central points, these pillars in the Force Point temples, and the whole sort of bullshit explanation is that the magical energies deep within Dinosaur Planet, the planet exudes so much energy that the structural integrity of the planet could not be maintained.
Yeah, the natural state of Dinosaur Planet is wanting to rip itself apart.
Right. Perhaps Dinosaur Planet is so ancient and it's so volatile as a result that the only way to keep it together is through unnatural means. And these means are via the Spellstones devised by the Krazoa, forged from dark matter, which is what the instruction manual says, but put into the proper places in the 2 Force Point temples. They channel the magical energies and keep everything intact. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. Don't try to figure out the actual logistics behind it, but it works well enough as a video game plot.
I keep mentioning like little bits and pieces of this I appreciate in the cutscenes, kind of like winking at the camera. There's a point early in the game where like Fox recaps all of this to himself.
Shit.
Okay, he steals the Spellstones, planet falls apart, I have to get the Spellstones, return them to the Force Point temples. At last, it all makes sense.
Right.
Just this whole, like, the game is leaning on that this is kind of a really, really convoluted runaround.
Yeah. What strikes me, though, is the similarity between the Force Point temples and the magical energies and the Kremlin source energies and the Crocodile Core in Donkey Kong Country 2. I don't know if they were thinking in those terms or if it's just, kind of parallel thinking, especially within the same studio.
It's certainly it's weird that it happened twice, sort of parallel.
Yeah, and I don't know if these magical energies are similar. There's a lot of similarities between Star Fox Adventures and what we see in Donkey Kong games, beyond just the David Wise score and some of the talent involved. Sharp Claws are basically Kremlings.
Yeah, they're basically Kremlings existing alongside, like, normal anthropomorphic alligators.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think that if you really wanted to draw a link between the two...
There's a weird, like, goofy Pluto thing going on. But, like, if Pluto could also talk, we'll get into it, I guess.
Yeah.
When we talk about the tribes.
Yeah, so I think Soria just has way more of the, I don't know, ley line energy that is, I guess, implied to be the Kremlin source oozing from the Earth's crust, and just too much. Like maybe the Krazoans would even be interested in Earth had they ever traveled that far.
There was also like the planet got hit by a meteor at some point. We don't
Yeah.
know how much that upset the natural balance. I mean, we do, but not necessarily like what weight. How did that affect the already like precarious like magic balance in the planet's core?
Right. So, Dinosaur Planet, Soria, breaks apart when General Scales absconds with the spell stones. He takes the 4 spell stones, and he hides them away in the 4 sacred lands where the spell stones were forged. It's a little nebulous here, but apparently the 4 sacred lands are where the Krazoans first devised the spell stones, and that's why they're sacred. And those are...
And they have like assigned gatekeepers to kind of wall off access to them.
Right, but why are they still sacred if the spellstone should be in the Force Point temples? Okay, whatever. But it just so happens that those 4 sacred lands are what break off from the planet when it starts breaking apart. So maybe there is some sort of like connection between the planet's structural integrity and why these are sacred lands, why the Krazoans needed to devise the spellstones in these sacred lands. Maybe they're like made with materials from those lands, and that's what keeps the planet from breaking apart.
And if those like 4 parts are the most inclined to start drifting away from the planet, it's maybe where you need the strongest anchor.
This is what I'm saying when, Star Fox Adventures does not hold your hand with any of this, but if you stop and try to figure it out yourself, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I like that. That makes sense. Yeah, okay. But yeah, if that, you're not the kind of person who wants to sit back and do that, if you don't want to think about the game when you're not playing the game, yeah, good luck. You're gonna hate this. But Dark Ice Mines, Cloud Runner Fortress, the Walled City, and Dragon Rock are the 4 lands, the 4 sacred lands, which just so happen to be, what break off when the planet starts breaking apart. Now, this whole conceit of the planet breaking apart and there being like 4 lands that you can't access outside of a spaceship is not present in the original Dinosaur Planet. This was how Rare did a workaround to incorporate Star Fox, because when you incorporate Star Fox, you probably want to have some R-Wing action. You probably want to have some spacefaring, some pew-pew shooties, in space.
Like we have context from Dinosaur Planet about where these locations would have been on the map if you were able to just walk to them.
Yeah. But I think this is a really clever idea, all things considered. Maybe you can see the seams, especially knowing what Dinosaur Planet was going to be. Much more so now we know than we did back then, but...
Yeah, I think the most obvious seam is that your mission in the R-Wing stages is to fly through a sufficient amount of rings.
Yeah, the R-Wing stages, because we're not going to talk about them much the next installment of the Spotlight series, but... I think that they're the most undercooked parts of the game. They're the ones that they don't really hold up compared to other Star Fox games.
And by necessity, and they are the part of the game that most makes me wonder, like, what would Rare have done if they kept making Star Fox games? Because this definitely seems like the kind of thing that, like, would be acknowledged internally, like, this is kind of undercooked. But next time we get a crack at this, we're going to do everything we wanted to do.
Exactly. And, that being said, they're gorgeous. They all look beautiful. It's fun to see Rare's take on traditional Star Fox, even if by necessity it isn't fully fleshed out and they're just kind of short little segments. I'm glad they're there, though. I do like that we still have R-Wing bits in the game, that it isn't just completely divorced from that. Especially it sets up the final boss battle, which completely takes place in the R-Wing.
And in 2002, when you haven't seen what a Star Fox game in the mold of 64 could look like on the GameCube yet, it's a huge treat to get a small taste of it.
Absolutely. So, Yeah, that's the whole reason we have like little satellite chunks of the planet ripped out of the planet, and that's the whole reason that whole plot line like hinges on that. But again, it works. They make it work. They've successfully dismantled Dinosaur Planet and filled in the holes with Star Fox Culk that you don't really mind or notice all that much unless you really stop to think about it. So we talked about the Krazoa and we talked about the underlying reason why the planet is in peril. General Scales is upset that he is not, or the Sharpclaw are not considered ruling tribes. They are not even respected by the other tribe. They are basically the Manky Kong of the tribes of Sauria. And so he's staging a coup with the help of Andross. Andross might have even given him this idea, might have even fed his sense of aggrievement, and basically got all this going. The kind of ghost in the machine, or
yeah,
ghost
it kind of sounds like he was always, his relationship with the other tribes was always antagonistic, but like they were, like he wasn't a serious threat until all of a sudden he's got this dramatic increase in effectiveness and like tools at his disposal, and they don't understand where it's all coming from.
Right. General Scales is the demagogue, and Andross represents the dark money funneling him power and resources. So the tribes of Dinosaur Planet of Sauria, there are prominent ones throughout the game. There are some that may only be alluded to, both within Star Fox Adventures and accompanying games in the shared universe of Rare. So let's go down the list, Cameron, of the dinosaur tribes, and we'll talk about some of the more prominent members of each tribe where applicable. I guess you can call this the Shabunga roll call. We got the Earthwalker tribe, of course, at the outset, the most prominent probably out of all the tribes, simply because of the connection to Tricky. But the Earthwalkers, they are one of the two ruling tribes of Sauria. And once again, I'm going to botch these very academic dinosaur pronunciations, but they are Ceratopsians, Triceratops, and so on. The ones who walk on all fours and have horns to varying extents on their faces.
As like a kid whose like favorite dinosaur was Triceratops, I appreciate that there's such a centerpiece of Star Fox Adventures.
Yeah, because, especially post Jurassic Park, the inclination for a lot of dinosaur media is, well, you gotta get Tyrannosauruses in there. I mean, that's always been the case, right? And we gotta get raptors. Those are what the kids want. But I like when Triceratops are put on a pedestal because, yeah, they're some of my favorite ones too. They've always been. I like the herbivore dinosaurs, probably because I am vegetarian. So the carnivores have never really appealed to me to the same extent.
They've kind of got a best of both worlds because they're an herbivore, but an herbivore equipped to defend themselves.
Exactly. Just like me. Am I right? I just kissed my muscles. You couldn't see, but I flexed. The Earthwalkers, like I said, includes Prince Tricky. And let's talk about Tricky, because we talked about the Star Fox cast, we talked about Krystal, talked about General Scales.
Yeah, we need to talk about the unsung member of the Star Fox team.
He does become a member of Team Star Fox, an honorary member at the least, but I think it counts. It's sort of like, oh, you're an honorary sheriff, little Billy. Here's a badge. But no, Tricky's part of Team Star Fox. I'll fight you on it. Tricky, more so than Krystal, I would say Tricky is the secondary protagonist of the game. Like, you never play as Tricky, but he is definitely there for much longer than Krystal is.
It's weird if any character's profile rose by virtue of the Star Fox retool, I think it's probably Tricky.
Yeah,
because with Krystal being excised, her sidekick Kite was also excised.
Except for a very brief cameo.
Tricky gets to be around a lot more.
He does, and Tricky is voiced by Kev Bayless, and I unabashedly adore Tricky. A lot of people get into this kick like, oh, Tricky's annoying. He's like the Navi of Star Fox Adventures. And I don't think that's the case. Navi always was really hey, listen, and just really cut into the atmosphere of Ocarina of Time. But I think Tricky is more he'll point things out to you, but it's more incidental. It's more oh yeah, over here.
He's also not really a hint character. He's more of I mean, you use him like a tool that you need to feed mushrooms, and if you're upset that he's complaining that he's hungry, that's your fault for not feeding him.
Right.
I would implore people who remember Tricky as being annoying to revisit the game, because every time I replay Star Fox Adventures, I notice something new about Tricky, in that Tricky is adorable. They add so many little touches to paint this picture of him as both a precocious, reckless child, and also kind of a pet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of something I only noticed recently replaying it is keep track of Tricky in the cutscenes he's in, but not the speaking or prominent character. He'll be doing things when the queen is describing the whole situation with the spellstones, he's sleeping at her feet. Or he might comfort a character who's in distress by rubbing up against their leg like a cat, or he'll scratch behind his for lack of he doesn't have ears to scratch behind, but he'll scratch behind his head crest like a dog with its back leg.
Yeah, basically
they really make him so cute.
Tricky is wish fulfillment. It's imagine your dog or cat could talk. Could talk your language. You could understand each other. And that's it. That's Tricky. But yeah, he is adorable. I love him. I would always want to keep Tricky content throughout the game. And of course, I have that attachment to Tricky because the whole reason we cover Star Fox Adventures on DK Vine is because of Tricky and that connection to Diddy Kong Racing. From a certain point of view, Star Fox Adventures is a Diddy Kong Racing spin-off. Very convoluted point of view, but it's there all the same. It's valid. We've had it backed up. So yeah. And I would try to always keep him content, well fed. I would play ball with him. I would love playing ball with Tricky. Sometimes I would just devote, entire 15-minute sessions. Oh, I'm going to play with Tricky.
I wanted to, but I stopped when I figured out what playing with the ball did to him.
You didn't like him changing colors?
I liked him changing colors, but I would always want to go back to the default one, and you have to cycle through by playing ball with him even more.
See, I'd be fine having lime green Tricky. I'd be oh yeah, Tricky is Mountain Dew flavored, or no, excuse me, he's Fox Fuel flavored. He's got the crisp taste of sour apple.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with me and having some weird hang-ups sometimes with a character having an appearance they maybe shouldn't for a specific cutscene. I'm the weirdo who played the PlayStation the PlayStation 4-5 Spider-Man game and kept Peter Parker in the outfit that you get towards the beginning of the game, just because I thought it might look weird if he doesn't have that in the context of this story.
So, did you not use Dragon Kazooie in Tui once you unlocked it?
No, I use regular Kazooie.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, you really are committed to that. I can understand that point of view for sure, but...
There's cases where I break it, but generally,
Yeah, I'm well, the game offers me this. It's valid within the context of the story. I wouldn't be able to put in a cheat code, for example, or something outside of the context. Like not just a cheat code as in the sense of like the sandcastle floor or whatever. It's like something that even the game presents to you but like something that's just outside, like we'll put in this and have a funny effect.
I mean, I feel more free about it when it's like my avatar rather than a like in-plot character. I guess.
Sure.
Like Sea of Thieves, I'll wear whatever I damn well please, but
I've trouble with that in Sea of Thieves because my whole identity is wrapped in that stupid leather jacket that Jeff apparently pisses on. But yeah, Tricky, I adore him in this game. I think it retroactively makes the boss in Diddy Kong Racing more endearing when you plug this into his backstory. It's like, oh, that's where he came from. Oh, he just likes running around. He just likes playing. That's why he cheated in that race. And of course, Star Fox Assault is the glue that holds both together. And it's because not jump into Star Fox Assault too much, but Star Fox Assault gives us sort of the middle ground Tricky, the teenage Tricky.
I am shocked at how well cast Tricky is in Assault to sound like the squeaky voiced teen version of Kev Bayless's Tricky in this game.
Right, which tiptoes up to the gruff Diddy Kong Racing boss version. It's remarkable when you compare the three portrayals because you're like, oh yeah, that's the middle ground, that's the missing link. But
Tricky's dad even sounds a bit like adult Tricky in Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah, so the other prominent Earthwalkers are just Tricky's immediate family, the Queen Earthwalker and King Earthwalker, and we never get names for them. We never, like, it's not like, I think the fan name we've given the two dinosaurs that appear with Tricky at the end of Diddy Kong Racing are Taxing and Troublesome, whether one of them is, like, a spouse and one of them is child or whatever, but yeah.
We get very few actual names for individual dinosaurs.
Yeah.
We tend to get titles.
Especially when they are of a royal pedigree. And it's funny that, Tricky isn't just Prince Earthwalker or Prince, or the artist formerly known as Tricky. They kept the name Tricky from the point where it was an explicit Diddy Kong Racing spin-off starring Timber the Tiger, and it somehow persisted to it being a Star Fox 64 sequel. And yet there's Tricky, still Tricky, and all right, nice name, I am so appreciative of that commitment to the stupidity that is, his name's Tricky, we're attached to Tricky, we're not going to change it. And because of that, it's this lifeline to us, to the few weirdos out there who really want this to be a prequel to Diddy Kong Racing, no matter what. So he's Tricky, and I think he's the only royalty in the game that has that name. I mean, Kite is never referred to as such in the game in her minor cameo appearance, but Tricky. But yeah, the Queen Earthwalker and King Earthwalker, they're basically, like you said, adult Tricky from Diddy Kong Racing and adult Tricky if he was a she. There's not, I don't really have a lot to say about them.
We don't really get a lot. Weirdly, like, one of the bits of characterization we get about them is from the Cloud Runner Queen, which is that there's some, racial politicking going on.
Well, that's what I really wanted to get into, and that's why I have in the show notes Earthwalkers and Cloud Runners right next to each other, all uncomfortable. It's really interesting the way they have the dynamics between the tribes, because you sense a lot of tension between a lot of the tribes, and a lot of that is just pure old racism. There is racism on Dinosaur Planet, everybody. Wherever you're gonna have a planet full of people with shared interest, they're always going to find a way to divide amongst themselves and find reasons to hate each other. And the Cloud Runners and the Earthwalkers are probably the two best examples of, obviously they would be philosophically opposed, right? One keeps low to the earth, one soars high in the clouds. And of course they're going to have different points of view. And because of that, there's a lot of mistrust. Yeah, there's a lot of antagonism, despite them being ruling tribes, despite them having shared interest in having Sauria be a peaceful planet.
Yeah, as Fox rightly points out, like, you fighting each other is only helping scales.
And look, Star Fox Adventures is not going to solve racial politics in humanity. We clearly didn't learn anything from it, but I appreciate even simple morality tales all the same. And I also like that it's not so... It doesn't spare beloved characters from falling under this ugliness. Like, Prince Tricky he refuses to step foot on the Cloudrunner Fortress. He doesn't want any part of it.
Which is like with Falco, it's like writing a character in a certain way that also like conveniently justifies a gameplay conceit, because Cloudrunner Fortress is a dungeon that cannot involve Tricky.
Yes, but it's taking this very beloved character, or beloved for us, the talking dog, and saying, "Oh yeah, we're almost halfway into the game. Guess what? He's a racist." Oh no. And, of course, Tricky learns something along the way. But he's not, like, fully there. He doesn't have this big dramatic monologue where, "Oh, I guess I was wrong about the Cloud Runners. They're just like us after all. I guess I have to do a lot of soul searching, Fox."
And we also do, like, see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel when we get to Dragon Rock, where you find out there's this group of buddies among dinosaurs that all, like, hang out together. And, like, one of them is an Earthwalker and one of them's a Cloud Runner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not this universal prejudice, like every Cloud Runner hates every Earthwalker. We're seeing the perspective from the royal families, from the toppermost of the poppermost of the Saurian tribe. So, yeah, I mean, I think among the rank and file, there is, like, this resistance that all get along, and just like humans, like, we all have different perspectives based on our exposure, based upon our intellect, based upon...
Tricky's view could just be, like, from hearing his parents, like, overhear, like, the Cloud Runner Queen said this at the meeting again. She's such an asshole.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, it feels fully fleshed out, though, like, this world and the ecosystem of ideas and varying degrees of empathy among the dinosaurs. And yeah, the Cloud Runners, they are pterosaurs, pterodactyls, pterodons, whatever. Not dinosaurs.
Yeah, a lot of hair splitting about them being dinosaurs. But I mean, this is an alien planet, so they can be whatever they want.
Yeah, this isn't as egregious as the Snowhorns, all right? But people are like, "Oh, pterodactyls, pterodons, pterosaurs, they are not dinosaurs." I'm like, yes, technically they're not. But they're I mean, come on,
it's like I've seen this pointed out with, like, well, why do you have a pterodactyl in the Dinobots and Transformers? Like, because it's a cool creature to have that's, like, thematically resonant. It doesn't matter.
Right. It's they lived at the same time, so effectively, they're a package deal. It's like, the Kongs, right? Like, well, why are some apes and why are some monkeys? Oh, shut up. Just so long as you don't call Diddy a gorilla. You call Diddy a chimp sometimes and it pisses me off, but you know what I mean. Like, it's all kind of part of a shared idea, and anybody who likes pterosaurs will probably like dinosaurs and vice versa, so it's fine. But yeah, the Cloud Runners, they live in Cloudrunner Fortress. That is their designated home kingdom. Now, I have a question about the Earthwalkers really quick. Is their home kingdom the walled city? Is it ever really explicitly explained where they live?
I think that walled city is supposed to be their, like, home, or at least their capital.
Uh-huh.
And in the context of adventures, as a giant fuck you, Scales has let the red eyes loose.
Yeah.
The game's T-Rex equivalent, and kind of, like, driven them all out.
I don't know if it, like, I know the walled city was presented as like the Red Eye prison, but I don't know if it ever said like, oh, the Earthwalkers, really hold court here. But in my mind, I always said,
yeah, certainly. I mean, it's perfect parody with Cloudrunner Fortress, where it has also been overtaken by Scales and kind of made into a makeshift prison.
Yeah, and the Cloudrunners, they come across, at least again, we see the perspective of the Cloudrunner Queen. But a little hoity-toity, like, a little, like, above it all. Like, obviously, it's kind of on the nose. But we also meet very down-to-earth Cloud Runners throughout the adventure. Like, Krystal's friendly Cloud Runner friend from the prologue, and then who appears in Dragon Rock later on. We never get a name for this Cloud Runner, and it's very odd considering how prominent he is.
Yeah, there was, like, it was a common misconception for years that this pterodactyl was Kite, just because he's so prominently Krystal's ally.
Yeah, and it bugs me that we don't actually have a name for him. We've never even come up with a fanon name for it. I think for a time, we called him Kite, because that makes sense. Let's pull from that, but...
We can't call him Terry, because it's taken.
Yeah, unless Rare set that up. Gave us something to go off of so we could say that it was Terry from Pterodactyl Land.
Krystal, I'd like to talk to you about my divorce.
But yeah, Kite is or at least was, Krystal's tricky equivalent in the game, her own companion. And Kite, what became of Kite was that she's the small dinosaur in the cage on General Scale's galleon during the prologue, who only gives you like brief tutorial messages, but never really is fleshed out after that, and is never rescued, never followed up on.
Shares a character model with the Cloud Runner children you run into later.
Yeah, and I don't even think like we can even, infer that the Kite we see in Star Fox Adventures is the daughter of the Cloudrunner Queen anymore, because the Cloudrunner Queen never says, "Oh my God, my one daughter is still in General Scale's possession. Help! She's kept on a cage on his flying galleon." It's just never brought up, and like the Cloudrunner Queen would bring it up. So I think if it is Kite, if we can say that one is Kite, then Kite is just canonically now a separate dinosaur or separate Cloud Runner from the one from Dinosaur Planet who was royalty.
Or maybe Kite is among the children you rescue later.
Yeah, I don't know.
But because they all look the same, it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
it essentially. She doesn't really matter in the story. She really got the short end of the stick.
I like that, when you spend time with the Cloud Runner, though, the Cloud Runner people, because you're given this very frosty perspective of them from the Earthwalkers, building up to your journey to Cloud Runner Fortress. And I like that after Fox spends time there, liberates them, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'm just being fed a bunch of bullshit from the different political factions on this planet. And I don't know, it's just a cool way for the story to be rolled out to you as the player, to not have any preconceptions, which also helps with the storyline where everything you think is going on the planet is wrong, and Andross is playing everybody and pitting them against each other.
Yeah, speaking of factions looked down upon by the other ruling tribes and being manipulated by Andross. What about the Sharp Claw?
Oh boy! So it should be pointed out that the Sharp Claw, they're portrayed as evil, as brutish. Kind of, I brought up Lord of the Rings earlier, sort of like orcs, right?
They're like bipedal, but they also when in the small glimpses we see of them, they're doing stuff like. They use very basic weapons like clubs, and they tend to speak in almost like a caveman cadence.
Yeah, which the Kremlin sort of do from time to time in Rare's portrayals of them, speaking just in broken language, and
you get the impression Scales is on an upper echelon from his rank and file.
which is why he is the general. And yeah, but yeah, so the Sharp Claw, though, they're not like universally evil. It's just they're being led by a madman who's being led by an even madder man. And
I mean, since we're freely able to spoil things, like, yeah, we see the second Scales is down, they're all partying.
Right. They're celebrating at Krazoa Palace, and you know, I think they even have his little belt, and they're like waving it around, like sort of like the Return of the Jedi Special Edition in Coruscant, where you see like the stormtrooper body being body surfed.
Like as early as when he collapses and the spirit flies out of him, his like bodyguards that he brought to flank him to confront Fox are cheering on the sidelines as soon as his corpse hits the ground.
But yeah, and then what we learn from Star Fox's soul, I think it is implied that the Sharp Claw, after the events of the Saurian crisis, that the Sharp Claw are then brought into this confederation, this like alliance of tribes. Like they are now officially recognized, and they're given like a fig leaf, like, all right, we're sorry, we were looking down upon you. But the reason they're looked down upon partially is because they are the newest of the dinosaur tribes on Sauria, and they're the newest because they are mutants, effectively. We learn so a lot of the stuff we learn in the game in Star Fox Adventures comes from the bonus text you can read in Fox's, what is it, a PDA?
Yeah, I mean his PDA is like an on-screen device, so I don't know what you call this like hologram thing he carries around necessarily, but I imagine I imagine it's all coming from the same place, so you can just call it a PDA.
Yeah, so
like it seems to be controlled by his little like arm gauntlet.
Yeah, but we learn like little bits of context and lore, and like I said, you can piece it together. If you're not the type of gamer who likes to read all the little details the game provides you, you know, stops and does every like riddle in the Arkham games or whatever.
But if you're like us,
you're gonna do that. When people say Star Fox Adventures is so short, I'm like, what are you talking about? Didn't you read everything? Didn't you play ball with Tricky for hours on end? What do you mean it's short? It was very fulfilling. But yeah, we learned that Moon Mountain Pass, one of the best areas of the game. I love Moon Mountain Pass.
It's extremely visually distinct and eerie.
It's so spacey. It's such a unique setting because, you know, so much of Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventures is the typical rare locales. We got lush jungles, beautiful beaches, a little bit more temperate foresty area, maybe swamplands, and then you've got Moon Mountain Pass, which is just basically lunar surface, but it's on the planet, right? So the backstory of Moon Mountain Pass was that was it a moon? One of Sauria's moons crashed into the planet?
I think that's what it was. It was, yeah, okay, the second moon of Sauria crashed into the planet.
Yes, millions of years ago. Millions, by the way. The second moon of Dinosaur Planet came crashing to the ground, bringing with it strange creatures from space and creating a mutant race of dinosaurs called the Sharp Claw. So yeah, the Sharp Claw are entirely a byproduct of this cataclysmic event. We don't know what perhaps like race of dinosaurs existed prior to the Sharp Claw that they evolved from, but yeah, this is effectively why the Sharp Claw are so looked down upon, why they themselves, at least General Scales, is so aggrieved and so looking for justice, is because they are not really accepted by the other dinosaurs who were there organically. The Sharp Claw came from Moon Mountain Pass, and they are more humanoid than the other dinosaurs, but more primitive in a lot of ways. At least until Andross sort of gave them a little bit of a leg up.
Yeah,
but
it's like two different scales of anthropomorphism coexisting on the same planet.
Yeah. And so, General Scales is really the most prominent Sharp Claw. We've got all the mooks, the minions, who Fox has to fight and evade throughout the game. But there's also the question of what Shabunga is. Shabunga, the shopkeeper of Thorntail Hollow. Because Shabunga is also a sort of bipedal, upright dinosaur who most closely looks like a sharp claw, but he's also this weird legless dude who floats.
Yeah. When coming back to, I'm okay with, some things not being explained about Star Fox Adventures.
Yeah.
You get no explanation for what Shabunga is, and that feels okay, because he can just be Shabunga. He's just this completely contextless weirdo who's been hanging around for, at minimum, hundreds of years.
Yeah, he's weird. There's some sort of magic in that old wool hat of his. I don't know why he floats. I don't know why he's seemingly immortal.
I mean, going back to there's some nice parody with him and Diddy Kong Racing, because he's vaguely genie-ish.
Yeah. I think Shabunga is ripe for a spin-off backstory of his own. If only we were Star Wars, if only we were the MCU and we needed constant content for our streaming service, and then we could definitely get that 6-episode Shabunga miniseries we've all been clamoring for. Finally, the story behind Shabunga. But alas, we're just left to our imaginations.
6 episodes, Hyle? You know what I think about that?
Oh no, I walked right into it.
No, that's too loud.
Oh, I deserve that. So, I don't know, you could make the case, especially since Sharp Claws have been there for millions of years, that Shabunga might be a Sharp Claw, lost his legs and developed the abilities of levitation. But it's not really explained, and I don't even think they knew, really. It's just Shabunga's a weirdo. But, so the Sharp Claw, they are from Moon Mountain Pass, but of course they've got a foothold all over the planet during the events of during the events of Star Fox Adventures, And they are also doing bio-experiments on Dragon Rock, which I guess could also be viewed as a base or a central point for the Sharp Claw.
Also raises question, specifically what Dracor is in this context, because they're supposed to be conducting bioexperiments on other dinosaurs, and Dracor is implied to be one of those. He is the product of that experimentation to create a bioengineered weapon.
Yeah.
We don't know what he was originally. We know in the context of Dinosaur Planet he was a dragon.
Right.
He was not an experiment. He was the one in the Andross role giving all of Scales this tech.
Yeah, we talked about Krystal getting the short end of her own staff from the transition of Dinosaur Planet to Star Fox Adventures. Dracor, oh man, Dracor really got a rough go of it. He was originally the mastermind, the true evil behind the game, and now he's just kind of a boss, a boss before the boss before the boss.
Yeah, again, at least he's in it.
Yeah.
That, he's got a cool design that didn't go to waste.
I think because so many of the dinosaur tribes were kept captive in Dragon Rock, I think that maybe Dracor is just supposed to be this amalgamation of all of them. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, dash of Snowhorn in there, little bit of a high top. I don't know. Doesn't really work, of course, with his design, because you would want to give him elements of all of them. But if he's just this genetic grab bag,
Yeah, you have a built-in excuse for him looking the way he does, even if it's, like, at the end of the day, it's a carryover from him being a dragon.
So those are the three most, I guess, prominent dinosaur tribes in the game. But we also have others who, maybe are a little bit more drama free. I don't know, the Snowhorns are plenty dramatic, but and so are the Lightfoot. But
Well, they all talk like they're in theater.
Probably outside of the High Tops, the least dramatic of the dinosaur tribes are the Thorntail. And Thorntails are, I believe, Notosauruses. They're the weird dinosaurs with the plating on the back that you never know their name. But they are extremely peaceful, extremely laid back. They mind their own business. They're not unlike hobbits from Tolkien lore. They're just living. They want to live and let live. They want to eat. They want to sleep. They want to have a good time.
They've got like fun individual personalities among them, like the crazy one who lives at the bottom of the well.
That's right. But they live in Thorntail Hollow, which is probably one of my favorite locations in the entire DKU. Thorntail Hollow, I absolutely adore.
It's definitely, I think, one of the strongest like stage setter places in a DKU game, because you get there and you immediately have, like, even in just the intro like cutscene, you get a pan over like there's a lot of like really showing off like the new toy that is the GameCube, because you get the very elaborate water effect, you get the WarpStone hanging around in the background, and you get this lush grass that blows in the wind.
Yeah. I think Thorntail Hollow also just is so memorable because it is effectively the central hub of the game. It is sort of this nexus point where you can reach so many areas on Dinosaur Planet. It's also where Fox parks his R-Wing. So it's where you leave the planet, come back to the planet. And
the WarpStone is there, the shop is there.
Yeah. It's wonderful. I think it's right up there with Spiral Mountain. It's just gorgeous. The David Wise song, which I referenced and played at the beginning of this episode, is just an all-time banger from David Wise. It's beautiful. It's just, I don't know, everything about this place. I would always think about Thorntail Hollow when I would compare GameCube games from later in the console's life to Star Fox Adventures and be like, doesn't look as good as Star Fox Adventures, because I'd be thinking about Thorntail Hollow because it's just so memorable. But yeah, I love the Thorntails. I love that, they're just drama free. This is how I want to live, Cameron. This is how I wish the rest of the world got on.
You do have to bail them out of drama a couple times, but it's like lower stakes drama, like they're being menaced by the annoying like bat enemies whose name escapes me right now, or their torches aren't lit and they might get scared at night.
We're not going to be talking about a lot of the lower life forms on Dinosaur Planet, like all the weird stuff that like swoops down at you, because we don't have time, and honestly, I don't remember them because the game doesn't make a great point at making you remember
them. The PDA will like throw up a name. Okay, it's Bloop.
Bloop. Okay, yeah.
I just remember them as the fucking annoying things that fly at your head.
Right. Yeah.
But they are maybe one of the most annoying generic enemies in the game.
Gremlin 2 looking motherfuckers. Anyway, yeah, the Thorntail are wonderful. We also see a lot of Thorntail corpses in Star Fox Assault, which is disconcerting. Thorntail corpses that have aporoids growing in them. It's Star Fox Assault takes us to some pretty dark places, but in Star Fox Adventures, the Thorntail, they're kind of a safe haven too, because you can always come back to Thorntail Hollow to get your bearings and just relax. And yeah, as you said, occasionally there will be drama, but for the most part, it's just a safe haven where you can play with Tricky, regroup, take a rest,
re-up your health and magic and bomb spores.
I also love Thorntail Hollow because it is in the foothills of Ice Mountain, and you can see Ice Mountain in the background, and it's just this great sense of place setting. Because you like, I know where I am on the planet, and I know what's on the planet right over there. And right over there is where the Snowhorn live. Now, we talk about how egregious it is that the Cloud Runners are considered dinosaurs, Cameron. And I said it was not as bad as the Snowhorn. Because the Snowhorn are mammoths. And you talk about people confusing pterosaurs with dinosaurs. But they're still soars. Right? They're still contemporaries. They're still basically flying reptiles that evolved into birds, sort of, kind of, squint. And Snowhorns are mammals who, when compared to their earthly counterparts, are from a completely different geological time period, long after dinosaurs roamed the earth. I mean, long after dinosaurs roamed the earth. Mammoths are far closer to our time period than mammoths were closer to dinosaurs.
Yeah, though some of these dinosaurs were also pretty damn far apart from each other, but we accept it because it's dinosaurs.
It's dinosaurs, right. But, I mean...
Like, why limit your... Like, when people say, like, it's called Jurassic Park, but not all of these dinosaurs are from the Jurassic era. Like, who fucking cares?
Yeah, it's hard for the human brain to conceptualize such a massive span of time that the dinosaurs roam the earth on. But mammoths are just not even the same subject, really. Like, I know mammoths and saber-toothed tigers always get lumped into, like, prehistoric times and, you know, Power Rangers, you know.
And they're really, like, the only creature of this nature on Dinosaur Planet, I think.
Yeah, there are no saber-toothed tigers on Dinosaur Planet. But again, they're aliens. They're extraterrestrial creatures that resemble the ones we know on Earth, just like Fox.
One of them is blue. It's fine.
Right, just like Fox McCloud isn't an Earth fox. He's a different biological entity. So are Snowhorns to the mammoths we know. So it's fine. It's fine. You know, I accept it. I raised my eyebrow at it, but, you know, it's like, Rare was like, well, we want a snow region. What tribe could represent the snow region? I understand it's hard to really pull a dinosaur into that, so they went with another prehistoric creature, or another extinct creature, who we always associate as prehistoric, who, because of that, get lumped in with the dinosaurs. Like, shit like, I don't know, were mammoths in the Flintstones?
Yeah.
Yeah, shit like the Flintstones, shit like Power Rangers has done a number on our understanding of this kind of stuff. But yeah, the Snowhorns, they live in... the Snowhorns have, like, the biggest territory in the game, like, most definable biggest territory, because they've got Snowhorn Waste, which is like the frozen tundra of Dinosaur Planet, but there's also Ice Mountain, and there's Dark Ice Mines. There's Sacred Land that you have to fly to. And I don't know. I like that they have such a huge romping area. I like that there's so many snow areas on Dinosaur Planet, because too often stuff like this, sci-fi planets fall under the trope of one biome, right? Even in Star Fox and Star Fox 64, Jungle Planet, Ice Planet, Ocean Planet.
And the Ice Planet will be closer to the sun than a lot of the other planets.
Yeah. So I like that Sauria is not that. Sauria is sort of Earth-like in that, yeah, it has different environments depending on where you are, and it has a lot of snow areas despite being the dinosaur planet. So, but yeah, there's notable Snowhorns include Garunda Tay, who's sort of their leader, and his daughter Belinda Tay. And the drama with the Snowhorns is they're feuding. They're not getting along, the Tays.
It's an ideological difference between father and daughter, really, is the conflict there.
Yeah.
Like, essentially what happened was Scales went to them with an ultimatum. You either let me do whatever I want with the spellstone, or I'm going to kill your entire tribe.
Right.
And you need to open the gate, or I'm going to kill everybody. Garundate's thought on it was, well, this sucks, but like needs of the many over the needs of the few. The entire planet is at stake if I let him do this, not just my tribe. And Belina's thought is, no, what the fuck? Like, don't let him kill everybody. Open the gate, and she opens the gate. At which point, Scales honors the deal literally, and instead of killing everybody, enslaves them in the mines.
Right. Yeah, and it's an understandable ideological gulf. Like, you can see both sides of this divide, and it's like, do we open ourselves up to this open conflict where we possibly risk the extinction of our tribe, or do we appease this madman and open ourselves up to further troubles down the line for the immediacy of, well, at least we're not all extinct? And so there's some prescient things in there that maybe apply to our current world political sort of environment right now. So yeah, I like these characters. I like that it's an early ideological gulf. We're talking about the Snowhorns a little bit later than some of the other tribes, but they are one of the first we visit and spend the most time with and kind of understand. And I like that this complexity is apparent even amongst themselves, like not even a beef between other tribes. It's entirely internal. It's entirely within a family, but it feels real. It feels understandable, and you don't really have to come down on one side or the other, but you can help them. The other tribe that has a lot of drama, and this is mostly with outsiders, but not any specific outsider.
Yeah, their drama is with you.
Yeah, with you and everyone else. They're the Lightfoot tribe, which I don't know what kind of dinosaurs these are supposed to be, Cameron. I really don't. Are they some sort of raptor, or?
It seems like it's contentious. I tried to think, like, what does a Wikia say about these? And it says they're comparing them to I'm going to butcher this because it's a dinosaur name I don't normally say, ornithalistas, basically like the like egg stealing dinosaurs, I think.
Okay, you said it better than I could, so feel good about that at least.
But like which would fit with like the first one you meet is stealing something.
Yeah.
Like it says their name means bird robber, but like that they are stealing something from the one you meet is stealing something from the sharp claw when you, or I think it's like the sharp claw. Anyway, I'm getting lost in the weeds.
You are.
This is the exact nature of the misunderstanding because they think you've stolen something from them when actually the thief just like threw it at you when he realized it wasn't worth the hassle of the sharp claw taking him down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's weird, like there's like some species blending here because the chief of the Lightfoots looks like the name escapes me, but it's the dinosaur that blinds Dennis Nedry in Jurassic Park.
Yes, the Dilophosaurus or something. Yeah,
Dilophosaurus.
Yes, that's it.
Maybe.
I considered them when I was trying to figure out what they were, but they don't have the frills.
Yeah, the chief is the only one with the frills. The rest of them, pretty barren except for some headdresses and makeup.
Oh boy, yeah,
this is where the drama goes into real life now because these guys are kind of problematic.
I mean, yes, especially 20 years on when we have a greater degree of understanding of maybe you don't want to portray them as Native and Indigenous Americans. Maybe you maybe you don't put them in headdresses and give them these voices and do all of that.
Their way of speaking is a bit like eyebrow raising in the way that like Jar Jar is.
Right. And again, this is 3 years after Phantom Menace, and a lot of this, I don't think they were self-consciously saying, let's make them like American Indians. It's stuff that bleeds into the culture and is in a lot of the tropes of genre storytelling.
And like, Rare has demonstrably done a lot of soul searching on this specific thing since, with how they've, like, even as early as Nuts and Bolts were softening what they were doing with Humba Wumba.
Exactly. Yeah. And so,
like, I do get the impression they wanted one of the dinosaur tribes to be like tribal rather than regal.
Right, tribal and more spiritually inclined, and of course that just brings it to a lot of the popular conceptions of indigenous Americans. And I think it's like George Lucas. He didn't explicitly want to make the Gungans sound like the uglier side of some things in American pop culture from back in the day, way back in the day, that should have stayed back in the day, but it just kind of bled in. And then when, you see the finished product, people pick up on it. And of course, people would be way more self-conscious about that sort of stuff today than they were even in the late 90s and the turn of the century, the new millennium and all of that. But yeah, we learned from it. Like we said during our Banjo-Tooie spotlight with Humba, weirdly, it was a different time, and it seems weird to say it wasn't that long ago, but we have come a long way in some respects. And that's not to say I don't dislike the Lightfoot. I do like the Lightfoot. It would be interesting to see them kind of reinterpreted, like Chief Thunder was reinterpreted in Killer Instinct 2013.
Gibbon's trying to give me some phonetic help with the name Ornitholestes.
I didn't realize Gibbon was a paleontologist, among all of her other pursuits. But yeah, I mean, I do like a lot of the Lightfoot. I like Lightfoot Village. There's a lot of the most frustrating parts of the game in Lightfoot Village, but it's...
Yeah, that thing with Musclefoot stopped me on the game for a long, long time, because I just do not have the dexterity for rapid button pressing.
No, it was definitely...
I think I had to get a pen and rub it over the controller to get past that.
It was definitely a little bit less... I don't want to say troublesome. I don't want to say egregious. I already used that in the depiction of the Lightfoot, and now we're talking about gameplay. It was no Canary Mary race. It was no Mario Party button mashing. It was just...
Like, on the one hand, it's far... Like, it is no contest that it's far and away easier than Canary Mary. On the other hand, it's mandatory.
Right, yeah. But yeah, I like Lightfoot Village, this little like swampy marshland forested area between Thorntail Hollow and Cape Claw. I like that the Lightfoot are isolationist. They don't really want to have anything to do with the happenings of the other tribes. And then Fox is like, but you're all interconnected. It's just like the fucking Gungans. Oh my god.
I like that their like village is also like, it's permanently autumn.
Yeah, somehow it's always autumn there. It's always autumn in Lightfoot Village. But yeah, I don't know. Like, if you can get past the tropes and some of the stuff we've evolved past, they're great. They're great. There's a charm to it and to the aesthetics. And yeah, just get rid of the headdresses. Speaking of Cape Claw, which I just mentioned, the high top are the sauropods of Dinosaur Planet. If you don't know what sauropods are, the long-necked dinosaurs. Your
brontosauruses, your apatosauruses.
Yeah, and I can't keep track, Cameron. Every so often you see a news story. Turns out this dinosaur didn't really exist. We mixed up the bones, and I think like Brontosaurus, was it one of them who said like, oh, Brontosaurus never existed?
Yeah, Brontosaurus was in contention for a long time. I think ultimately it's back.
Jesus. All right. But again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter because Dinosaur Planet, they are not Earth dinosaurs. So they can be as aligned with pop culture from the middle of the 20th century as Rare wants because they are all extraterrestrial. So it can be a brontosaur. I don't know what the high tops are exactly supposed to be. Long-necked dinosaurs. That's all you need.
I mean,
to know.
they can just blend into like popular conception of this is what a big long-necked dinosaur is.
Right. That's why like Earthwalkers are 3 types of dinosaurs all blended in the same family. Like they can be so many things, and they can be depicted in different ways throughout the games. It's fine, but high tops are interesting because they very rarely appear in the game. I think there are 2. There are 2.
exactly 2. One in Cape Claw and one in Dragon Rock.
And in fact, if you check the PDA, it just says, not many members of this tribe left. Which, like, what? What happened to the high tops? I think that was just Rare being cheeky because they didn't use them much. But yeah, it seems to imply that they're dying out as a species. And, I don't know. We don't even know where they're really from. Like, it's fan conjecture. It's my conjecture, even, that their home kingdom is Cape Claw, because that's where we see one of them. But we don't know.
Yeah, and the one on Dragon Rock has been abducted, so...
Right, and I will say, the one you ride around in on Dragon Rock, it's a lot of fun to ride around on. I do enjoy... I do it, like... You get a lot from the high tops for as limited as they appear, because the one in Cape Claw is very nice, and the one on Dragon Rock is very useful. So, good for the high top, and you know it's good. It's good. There's this sense of mystery, like, well, what's happened to the high top? Did they survive the Aperoid assault in Star Fox Assault? Well, some of them must have, because we see some of their species throughout the rest of the DKU, throughout the rest of the Rare Archipelago. So. High tops in Diddy Kong Racing even. So, you know, from a certain point of view. Red Eye. Whenever you say, I'm going to take the red eye, you know, to get home, overnight, I always think of the dinosaurs now from Star Fox Adventures. But
yeah, they're the T-Rex equivalent in this game. And gotta say, surprisingly understated presence of T-Rexes in this dinosaur game.
Yeah, they do make you wait for it, because they don't appear until the walled city, which is sort of near the end game. It's not the final area, but it is relatively late in the game where they finally pull the ripcord on T-Rex action. The Red Eye or Tyrannosauruses or other close relatives.
Yeah, like you can say, like, Shabunga and Scales and the Sharp Claw, like, all have, like, T-Rex elements to them, but they're not giant hulking monsters with a jaw as big as you are. These guys are just out and out T-Rexes.
Yeah, and it is the most classic depiction of dinosaurs in the game, because they don't seem to be all that evolved. They're almost bestial. They just hunt.
They don't talk or like emote the way that the other dinosaurs in the game do. They're like these are wild animals, and they want to kill you on sight.
Yeah, when
the picture painted. The
dino language page in the instruction manual mentioned that some of the dinosaurs still communicate through, you know, grunts or whatever. I think they were referring to the Red Eye. But the Red Eye seem to have some semblance of intelligence, because they do have a king. King Red Eye is his name. Go figure. Took them hours to come up with that one at Rare. But, yeah, the we don't even know the home kingdom of the Red Eye, because the Red Eye, this is a bit controversial on the Earth. The Earthwalkers aren't saints. Just because we have great affection for Tricky, I think his parents were a little bit shitheads. They've locked away the Red Eye in the walled city. So the only context we know of the Red Eye are really as prisoners. Now, it's possible they originated from Dragon Rock. The name would kind of line up with that. But again, we don't know, and the game doesn't tell us. But yeah, the Earthwalkers locked them up because...
Yeah, which seems to be a nuclear option because they were like, we can't have you around, you're trying to eat everybody.
Yeah, which I guess I understand, but it seems dodgy all the same, you know? But yeah, you know, the Red Eye, I think they're an appropriate threat. They feel intimidating. They're scary when you finally encounter them. Like, oh my god, I'm being chased by a T-Rex. So, you know, the payoff is worth it. I don't think they're as interesting as the other tribes, though, because they don't talk. They are just more wild animals, or at least portrayed that way. If there is anything more going on in there, it's not presented as such in the game.
And
because
they
of
are
that,
they are a one and done threat too. Like once you take them out, they don't respawn. That's it.
yeah, so because of that, they're not as endearing. They're not as memorable. They're not as fun to reminisce about. They exist, and I'm glad they're there, but I would put them near the bottom of the rung as far as my favorites in the game.
Yeah, King Red Eye does make for a good like dramatic boss fight because you're staring down a T-Rex through a narrow tunnel.
It's probably the most memorable boss fight in the game. I know we just talked about Dracor and build him up, but Dracor is kind of I don't want to say it's a weak boss fight because I enjoy
I mean, he's
it,
he's an on-rail shooter.
right, yeah. The boss fight where you feel the most immediate threat, like, oh my god, this is I'm gonna die, is King Red Eye for sure. Now, those are the tribes laid down in the game. However, there are some other more nebulous associations, some dinosaur tribes that are sort of just in the peripheral, sort of in the ancillary media and in other games, edge cases, we'll call them. The first one that is undeniably canon is there's one dinosaur who appears in Cloudrunner Fortress who is allied with the Cloudrunners. He is their chief technician, the chief technician for Cloudrunner Fortress, but he's not a Cloudrunner. His name is Greatabug. And in the Nintendo Power, I believe, Player's Guide, the same source that gave us Shabunga, he's referred to as a bonehead. His dinosaur tribe is Bonehead.
I think this might be my favorite, like, fictionalized tribe name they came up with.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, but it is correct.
Right. He is modeled after, I'm going to botch this pronunciation. Oh my god. We should have brought a paleontologist on the show with us to really guide us through. Like, people are always getting on me for the way I butcher names.
I mean, this is why Tyrannosaurus Rex gets shortened to T-Rex.
Yeah, but I botch a lot of names on the Kongversation. I have awkward pronunciations of not just Japanese names, but English names. I'm just if I don't know your name, if I don't know you, and if I've never said your name aloud, I will butcher it, and I'm sorry for that. But that's nothing compared to some of these dinosaur names. Oh my god! All right. Pachyas Philosopherus? Nope, that's not it.
If you played a Pokemon game since like Generation 4, it's the basis of Cranidos and Rampardos.
We'll go with that. There you go, people. Now you know exactly what we're referring to. But yeah, Greatabug is a bonehead. And by the way, the naming convention, the structure of all of these dinosaur tribe names, they're all compound words that have capitalized letters where the second word in the compound word would be. So bonehead is all one word, but it's capital B, capital H, bonehead. Cloudrunner, capital C, capital R. Earthwalker, capital E, capital W. They are remarkably consistent throughout this game, to the point where when something isn't a compound word, I have to double check myself. Wait, is that right? Should it be a compound word? Like Force Point Temple is actually two words, Force Point. But I'm always like, wait, is that should be Force Point, all one word, capital F, capital P, right? No. So, but by and large, everything is a compound word with that capitalization affectation. So I just love it. It's just one of those weird flourishes that they committed to. I appreciate. So Bonehead, Nintendo Power seemingly came up with this when they were coming up with the player's guide, but I accept it as canon, just like we accept Shabunga as canon for the shopkeeper's name. So Bonehead. Now, this is not really a tribe because we just see one and he's under the umbrella of the Cloud Runners. But I like to think maybe Boneheads are allied with Cloud Runners. They're not so much their own people as we are one with you, the Cloud Runners. Maybe they have like evolutionary roots and one took to the skies and one did not, but they are very like linked, and because of that they have formed a union. I don't know.
Yeah, and I like that there can be bleed over.
Yeah.
Like these tribes aren't just like all isolationist and keeping to themselves.
Right. Oh, you're a mammal with a long snout. You've got to be you've got to be in the Snowhorn tribe, or I don't know. Yeah, I like that. We get a glimpse of much deeper evolution of their political structure, and even things like the Boneheads existing. We just see one, but he's with the Cloud Runner, so that just really like fires up the imagination. So you can then think, how did that happen? How did they form an alliance? What other alliances might there be with dinosaurs we're not seen in the game? Oh my god, how deep does this go? How deep does this game well maze go? Well, there's another dinosaur we see briefly in the game. We don't see them physically. We don't see them in bodily form. They are a sort of magical hallucination that Fox has in the test of fear late in the game. And they are out and out raptors. That Jurassic Park made famous right under T-Rex as most troped dinosaur.
Again, weirdly understated in this game.
Well, apparently they were going to be in Dinosaur Planet. They were cut. These were going to be the Shadow Hunters, I believe. And yeah, they only make an appearance in this very muted, blunted form.
In a context where like it's not even like, because we see them in when Fox is going through the test of fear.
Yeah.
And it's unclear in that context if like they even really exist. Or if they're like a figment of the hallucination that Fox is like undergoing as part of this test.
Yeah. Like maybe when Master Hand plucked him out of time and space and he was in the Smash Brothers locker room, like Donkey Kong showed him Jurassic Park, and the kitchen scene really terrified him.
He had nightmares for days.
And then he went back to the Lylat System, and now he's on a planet full of dinosaurs, and he's thinking about Jurassic Park. He's like,
I mean, it's not even clear if like the test of fear is like Fox's own fears or it's what it thinks Fox is afraid of. Because
right,
one of the fears is a giant General Scales.
Right,
that's like semi-transparent.
Where Fox's own manifestations would probably be the death of his father, Andross, but we don't want to tip our hand and show Andross at this point, so yeah.
Right.
And of course, Shadow Hunters might exist, we just don't really know, but I think they do. I like to think they do. I like to think there's more dinosaurs than what we've seen.
Oh, absolutely.
And if we're to understand the dinosaur scene in Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo-Tooie, and Conker's Bad Fur Day to all be from Sauria, which as we established from the last episode, we're essentially confirmed. Essentially. Then we would probably have plesiosaurs, or whatever the Saurian equivalent to plesiosaurs would be, because the Chomposaurus from Banjo-Tooie, from Pterodactyl Land, is kind of a plesiosaur-esque dinosaur. So yeah, I could see the oceans of Dinosaur Planet being full of other dinosaurs. Because we don't go onto the ocean. We only see it from Cape Claw.
And they could call them the ocean crawl. Oh, no, wait, they can't.
Yeah, it's a shame we didn't get a straight sequel that would take place again on Dinosaur Planet, because it could be like Avatar. It's like, okay, now let's explore the oceans in the sequel. Let's have 4 sequels. Let's make them all at once and dole them out. Oh well. I'm sure there's other dinosaurs seen in those 3 N64 games that take place in the DKU that,
No stegosaurs at all. That's a surprising omission. I mean, we've seen like they were going to be in Dinosaur Planet at one point because there's a render of at least one of them.
Yeah.
But like that's like the basic children's toy box dinosaurs. That one's not there.
Right. Well, there's another element to the game that we haven't really touched upon, and this is where we're going to end this episode. Because I feel like if we're going to be transported from the end of one episode to the beginning of another, you gotta end with the WarpStone. He's the only one who can do it properly. So the WarpStone is an oddity. As we established in the Dinosaur Planet episodes we did last season, originally there were 2. They were the swap stones, and you swapped back and forth between the 2 brothers. When everything was sort of pared down into Star Fox Adventures, they kept that element, but they just made it one singular character, and the Swap Stone became the Warp Stone. And he doesn't have a name; he's just the Warp Stone. Again, compound name, Warp Stone, capital W, capital S. The WarpStone speaks with a Scottish brogue, inexplicably. Yeah, it's just one of those parallel things. Oh, yeah.
He gets like a bagpipe theme song, too.
Yeah,
so they know what they're doing.
So Scottish accents also exist in the Lylat system. All sorts of accents exist in the Lylat system. It's not Scottish per se.
Lots of planets have a north.
Yeah, exactly. Andross would also have a Scottish accent in this game, so... The WarpStone, he kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of sense with what they've left him, because he can only take you to Krazoa Palace and Ice Mountain, and you only have to go to Ice Mountain really once in the game.
And, like a big hint drop of him being built by the Krazoa is, he can't warp dinosaurs.
Yeah,
on a dinosaur planet.
On a planet full of dinosaurs. So why would that exist? Well, the Krazoa built them, which would also explain the link to Krazoa Palace, But why would the Krazoa, presumably a spacefaring race, why would they build this teleportation device to be a talking jolly old soul who's a big stone man? It's never explained. It doesn't need to be explained. It's fun. The WarpStone is the fucking best. Probably one of the best character behind Shabunga as far as just original characters in this game who just stick with you. I want a WarpStone in my life.
Both like just these inexplicable weirdos.
Yeah, right next to each other. They're neighbors. Just that's why I love Thorntail Hollow. Live with Shabunga and the WarpStone. That's the life I want to live. But the WarpStone, he also has another function besides warping you back to Krazoa Palace and that one-time Ice Mountain. He's also got some stuff going on in his undercarriage. He's got a Gamewell maze. Now, what's a Gamewell maze? I don't even think Rare knew for sure. It's a labyrinth underneath the WarpStone that presumably, again, the Krazoa built. But the Gamewell maze is where you throw in tokens and you get rewards. Now, some of these rewards are kind of from a more meta, out of the game sense. Like, oh, you can have a sepia tone in the game. You can make the game look sort of yellowish. How fun. I don't know. It's there. But, so he's kind of like, it kind of serves the function as Cheeto or some of the other elements that Rare's incorporated throughout the years of, we're going to acknowledge game-altering things in-universe. Even if it doesn't really make sense from an in-universe perspective. Like, I don't think this changes Fox's vision to remove several bits of color from his spectrum.
Yeah, I don't know what in context he thinks a cheat token is when he crawls over the well and is offered one.
Yeah, cheat at what? My diet? But I think that...
Lose weight now, ask me how.
I think that the strongest thing that we can derive from the Gamewell maze are not the little bonuses we get like watching the game credits, but the fortunes you get from the Gamewell Maze, because the Gamewell Maze, I think this is like in universe why the Krazoa would build this, to commune with the magical properties of Dinosaur Planet and sort of look beyond the veil and get divine wisdom from the spirit world. And maybe this is how the Krazoas transcended this life into the next and stayed around, as they gained the insight from the Gamewell Maze. Look at this. I'm divining lore from Star Fox Adventures that I've never thought about 20 years after the fact. This game is rich, people. But there are a series of, how many are there? Five fortunes you can get from the cheat tokens. And these are hints at things to come. They are deep dives into the lore of both Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox. And they're just, they're fun. So I think we should read these verbatim as we wrap up this episode. All right, so I will read the first one.
Okay.
His life force, and by the way, life force is hyphenated and capitalized, which I don't think is necessary either way, but okay. His life force is strong. His existence is like a virus. I can hear his breath in every corner of space. He will not only use the evil hearts of others, but he can also corrupt those that are good. So if you are unclear about Andross and the reveal at the end of the game that Andross's ghost is behind all of the events, if you cast this cheat token and got this fortune, this would make it abundantly clear what they're trying to do with the plot of the game. I love that line. His existence is like a virus. I can hear his breath in every corner of space. That's so evocative. That's so... just sets this mood of there's no escaping the evil of Andross. Even after death, he's everywhere.
And I think it paints like a good picture of like when you are asking questions like me, is like, how was he able to do all this as when he was dead? It's just sort of like you won't be rid of him.
It is remarkable how closely this aligns with Rise of Skywalker and what
this does just seem like something that maybe should have been in extended lore of Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I mean, look, Rise of Skywalker, we like people clown on it, but no, it's like Palpatine's essence persisted. He moved into a clone body. Okay. I think it only makes sense, though, to the people who read the expanded universe materials, because that's what happened. And I think it was 1993, maybe 92, Dark Empire, the Dark Horse comic miniseries where Palpatine's essence persisted after Return of the Jedi and he moved into a cloned body. So technically Star Wars did do this first. It just wasn't acknowledged in the movies until 2019. But Star Fox Adventures, I think, did it in a very a more clever way than Star Wars has ever done it, because...
this is certainly a much more satisfying way of phrasing it than somehow.
Because the whole plot of Star Fox Adventures hinges upon attempts to revive Andross. Whereas in every time Star Wars has done it with Palpatine, it's, oh, Palpatine's back now it's trouble. And... I don't know, I think if the plot of Rise of Skywalker was we have to prevent the First Order from reviving Palpatine, and it all leads up to that, it probably would have resonated with people a little bit better.
Yeah. I don't want to get too bogged down in Rise of Skywalker, though, so we can move on to the next one.
Another 3 hours. Yeah, all right.
I guess we'll just take turns on this.
Sure.
You are meant to be together. It was your destiny. Together as one, you will bring peace.
I guess this is referring to Krystal and Fox, considering they do strike up a romantic relationship at the end. It's implied they strike up a romantic relationship at the end because of David Wise's porn sacks, but...
I also get the impression that, like, given some, like, dialogue, like, we know was cut from the game because it's in, like, sound files, I think they originally planned to be a lot more blatant about, like, pushing Krystal and Fox together as a couple.
Yeah. I guess this could also be inferred to be Fox and Tricky. Like, I know he's annoying to you now, Fox, but you're really gonna grow to love the little bugger. But I think Krystal is probably the cleanest reading of this, especially with what they did in Star Fox Assault, where, yes, they are in a romantic relationship. They are a couple.
And also, like, all of these other hints are, like, pointing you at the end game.
Right.
It seems.
Yeah, so that's pretty. That's not as juicy as the Andross one, but yeah, it's still there. Still good to be there. All right. A friend who has left still cares about you. The bond of your friendship still remains. He will soon appear before you, and you should accept him with all your heart.
Have you accepted Falco Lombardi as your personal savior?
Cue David Wise porno sax yet again. Yeah, so if there was any doubt, if there was any fear that Rare would completely leave out Falco, I remember people were pissed. People were pissy that Falco wasn't in this at all, like when we were getting doled out the information pre-release. And even up to the point of the game launching, people were just like, yeah, but Falco's not in it.
Yeah, with me, it's like, as soon as I saw he had artwork in the manual, it's like, okay, well, they wouldn't just render a head and shoulders if he's not going to be in the game.
Right. And then, of course, you get this, and you're like, okay, yeah, he's going to show up at the end. Allay those fears, everyone.
Yeah, I can go with the next one. This is a fun one. I can see you have matured into a strong leader. I am always there with you. Never give up. Trust your instincts, my son.
Did we really need the my son bit tacked on? Like, I think trust your instincts pretty much seals it, what they're doing there. Like, I guess if you never played Star Fox 64, I guess if you don't know the lore of Fox's backstory.
I mean, it's also, like, in the context of 64, those are things Peppy says that he got from James.
Yeah. This is the only clear suggestion that everything we're getting from the Gamewell maze here is actually a spirit talking to you, and maybe a different spirit each time. And this time it's James McCloud swimming on up to the spirit hole and shouting through it at Fox. It's like, oh, I get a chance to talk to my son again. I'm gonna just mosey on up over to the little phone line here, little can on a string, and say, what up? Yeah, but I like that. I like that they did include James McCloud. Like, James McCloud doesn't have this outsized presence in this game, because I think all the daddy issues are pretty much resolved for Fox by this point.
It's like a trick that they keep doing, but it always works on me, like just having like Fox's ghost dad show up and say he's proud of him.
Right. See, the only acceptable ghost dad we can have in 2022, too. So, stick around, James. We need you now more than ever. All right, the final one is the most ambiguous one. It's the one that scholars are still debating to this day.
This one's contentious, and I don't know why, like, we haven't just added somebody on Twitter to say, hey, what's going on with this thing?
I think because the mystery is more fun than any resolution would be. All right. There is sorrow ahead. A close friend does not have much time left. It will be hard to accept, but you will grow. Whoa. Who's gonna die? Who's gonna kick the bucket? Well, here's where we don't know, because this could be Rare potentially setting up something up for a sequel that they would never get to make. Or just throwing it out there like, hey, if somebody else wants to pick up this thread down the line, here you go, which Namco did quite a bit of in Star Fox Assault. I think the most universal reading of this at the time was, oh my god, Peppy's gonna die soon. Maybe not in this game, but Peppy's gonna die soon.
I feel like I've seen like 3 main readings of this, and like all of them have their problems.
Yeah, so...
which is like... A, it's referring to Peppy, or possibly, Peppy. I would say, or possibly Pepper, but even though Pepper's older, he's not really portrayed as that old in this game.
Well, here's the thing. In retrospect, I think General Pepper would be an appropriate reading for this because of what happens to him in Star Fox Assault. He doesn't die.
Yeah.
But he definitely, his military career ends.
And in Command, like... they don't outright say he's dying. They like say he's confined to his sick bed and can't leave. But like the impression that paints for me is like, oh, he's on death's door.
Right. The aborted assimilation by the Aparoid did a number on him, and he's basically not on death's door. He's basically laid up permanently as a result, and. So yeah, I think Pepper could be a reading. That's obviously not what Rare was probably going for here, but that's just a retrospective. Oh, that could work. We could plug that hole with General Pepper.
The other two interpretations I've seen, which I think are more raise a more hey, wait a minute problems immediately are one that it's talking about Tricky because he's going to leave you at the end of the game. But that doesn't really track because, like, he doesn't die. You just kind of say your goodbyes.
When you say a close friend does not have much time left, that has pretty stark implications. You don't say, hey, Cameron, I'm afraid I've got some bad news. I don't have much time left. ... Yeah,
you're
not
the
grocery store.
You're not the doctor from Arrested Development.
Right. And granted, I felt like I don't have much time left this week because of my chronic fatigue, but for all I know, I'm going to be around for several more years. So I think that reading is stupid, if I'm honest. It's not tricky.
Yeah, the other reading I've seen for it is that it is metaphorically referring to the Rare buyout.
Yes.
Which I feel like that's a signing like retroactive melodrama a little bit.
Although I enjoy that reading.
I enjoy that reading because it's a fun idea that they'd like put something like that in here.
Well, I enjoy that reading, if not for a close friend does not have much time left, but it will be hard to accept, but you will grow, which is the entire morality lesson of the Rare buyout, as we just talked about a couple weeks back. Yeah, I don't know. And, they could still pay this off if there is ever a fourth entry in the chronological lineage of the Dinosaur Planet series, starting with Star Fox Adventures. Yeah, you could have Peppy buy it. You could pay this off in a way that would feel appropriate.
It's funny, like, I think the only permanent deaths we've had since this have been ones that other characters didn't like Scales and Pigma.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's referring to Pigma.
Even Pigma lived. He just lived as, like, a abomination.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's referring to Pigma. Sure, a close friend.
He's a Rubik's Cube now, maybe.
Yeah, so I like, though, that we're still debating this 20 years later, and that, yeah, it's fun, because it keeps you engaged within the game and the game's world, and it makes you think, do they mean by a close friend does not have much time left? What sorrow is ahead? I don't know, like,
I wonder if that's even, like, a seed, like in their, like, dealings with Nintendo of, like, hey, we could do this in a future game. Why not seed it here? And then plans changed.
But I like game mysteries that are never fully resolved. Like, it's why I go on quite a bit about some of the stuff they put in some of the later Grand Theft Auto titles, like paranormal stuff, that you're just like, what? But it's just like real life. Because sometimes you encounter stuff that makes you go, what? And we don't have an explanation for it. Not everything needs to be cut and dried or, tied into a tight ribbon. Sometimes you just don't know. And we don't know what this message was. But I've got good news, Cameron. Well, I've got good news and bad news. We do not have much time left for this episode. It will be hard to accept, but you will grow. That's the bad news. The good news is we have a whole other part to our Star Fox Adventure Spotlight series ahead. So, I have another 3.5 hours in me of Star Fox Adventures discussion. Do you?
Sug ak walo ak u jek. Amo ak mo zer hawks.
This has been a File 2 production.
¡Qué rico!